1, 2, 3, 4. I won't deny it, I'm a Southsider. You don't wanna mess with me. Got the police looking for me. But I'm calm cause I'm smoking that CBD. Said I won't deny it, I'm a Southsider. You don't wanna mess with me. Got the police looking for me. But I'm chilling in the back of the VIP. Said we won't deny it, we are Southsiders. You don't wanna mess with us. Got the police looking for us. And there's nothing that they can do when you're chilling with the Blessed Life podcast crew.
Hey.
What's up, what's good? Happy Sunday, everybody. Enjoy it because tomorrow's Monday. Tomorrow's Monday. I'm Brian Tierney. This is the Blessed Life University podcast, The Blue Podcast for short. We're going to talk about some positive stuff, but we are also going to be talking about the beating of Tyre Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee that resulted in his death. And we do this because we're everyday people like you, and we want to talk about this. We feel it's an important issue, and it'll be good for people to hear regular folks talking about what's going on out there, you know, outside of the news media that you see on TV. Here to talk about that with me today is Tilsa D. Fernandez, the owner of Divine Yoni Goddess and Divine Wedding Vows. If you need to get married, I couldn't think of a better person to do it than Tilsa. And it was her birthday yesterday, so happy birthday! Feliz cumpleaños, mi amiga. Mi amiga. And Captain Mateo Thomassen, fresh back off the roads from Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah.
Safely here with us. We're fucking blessed, man. So, we're also going to be talking about, too, we talk about this when we talk about, police issues, is what are lawful orders during a traffic stop? What is a traffic stop, and when can police make one, and how to handle yourself if you're a clean person riding clean, you got nothing to worry about. But if you're a dirty boy riding dirty, well, then you're probably going to have some problems. But here are we're going to be presenting some good tips for you today on how to handle things when you're speaking with the police during a traffic stop. So prior to starting the podcast here, we watched the beating of Tyre Nichols, which was chaotic and tough to watch and, hurtful. And I feel for his mom and his dad that I seen in the news speaking about this. They don't have a son anymore, and that all changed within the last month. And very crazy. And the video here, so what had happened was, for some background, is that a police officer radioed out that they were chasing somebody who was suspected of reckless driving, and they start out, there's only a few officers, and later on in the incident other officers end up responding. So the incident starts at an intersection. It seems like when the police officers arrived, they were already at 100 miles an hour. They were yelling at Tyre,
it's intense,
cursing at him right away as soon as they got up. So they were already at the 100 mile an hour speed limit when they approached him. So the situation was already tense and already in the red. And they tell him to get the fuck out of the car. They pull him out of the car.
Did they have tasers drawn when they told him to get him out of the car, or were they empty-handed?
One of the officers might, but it appeared, and we just watched this, and we didn't have a lot of time to prepare for the podcast. That's another thing I want people to understand, is that two things before we really get into it, is that number one, we're just regular people and we work, and we just had our birthday and all this. We're not sitting here dissecting this to give you some kind of really, really thorough, thought-out opinion, and our memories aren't always perfect. We're not going to be showing this video while we're doing this. But in any event, we're going off of memory. And also, when we're talking about stuff like this, we're talking about basically a situation that is where it's the ugliest of what humanity has to offer. In some instances, the police are put in that situation by suspects. In other situations like this, appears to be just very poor police training, not only in tactics during a traffic stop, but also how to manage anger and emotions. This video devolves into what looks more like a gang beating or jumping than a police arrest.
Yeah,
So,
it's pretty bad, man. I'm looking right now. Yeah, they actually had guns drawn at the initial trap. I'm looking at the video right now. The initial encounter. These guys had guns drawn on a traffic stop. It's not like this was like a like a 187 or something like that they're responding to, or
right. I think it was completely excessive how they came out.
Yeah.
And they approached the individual. They were looking for a fight. That's what it seemed like, based on their language, body
to use
language.
brute force for sure, yeah.
And yeah, it just escalated. I mean, but there's no, I saw it, and I felt like it just escalated, and there wasn't a right or wrong way of the individual for like recovering. It was just gonna go down. Period.
Bring that mic in a little bit closer, Tilsa. Just a little bit, so yeah, that'd be good right there.
Yeah.
Perfect. And speak in the direction of the mic. Yes, I agree with what you're saying. It did start in the red, which we talk about all the time on this podcast, is that emotions are contagious. Anger,
Absolutely.
fear, everybody's in a situation where they're not making the best decisions at that time, both the suspect and the police officer.
But there was I'm sorry for interrupting. There wasn't like one officer to de-escalate the situation.
No, everybody was
on it, and that's the scary part. Like when you're looking at individuals, obviously as a law enforcement, you're consistently going through traumatic experiences. You're not being called because everyone's behaving right. So I felt like all of them have like trauma, past experience with certain things, or they can't really control their feelings on what's happening, and they really escalated something that should have been a lot less lethal.
Yeah, this seems to be a perfect example of why officers need much better training, and we'll get into real depth with that as we go through the whole incident.
Oh yeah.
So Matt, you have that look on your face like you found some information you
And
want to share.
just because you're wearing a badge doesn't mean that you don't adhere to laws the same way too. The badge doesn't mean that you can take on whatever you feel at the same, at the time of the incident.
Sure. You still have to operate within the bounds of the law, and these guys, I don't think they were thinking that. I don't know, how long these guys' career was. We talked about maybe like seeing how long these guys were on the force. I don't know, but I just saw whatever it is. I just saw an article. The Memphis police chief is disbanding that unit that those cops are part of. It's the so-called Scorpion unit, and citing a cloud of dishonor. Well, yeah, I would say this probably amounts to a cloud of dishonor. Certainly, that's an accurate statement. So they're getting disbanded. Clearly, the Scorpion unit had a cool name, not cool training or any training from what I can see in terms of how to actually handle a suspect, hands-on, and apprehend a suspect. It's
But even the name in itself,
Yeah.
What do scorpions do? They attack and they kill.
Yeah.
So is this, you're giving your unit that name immediately? That's a lethal name. What the fuck were you guys thinking?
It's pretty
I mean,
stupid.
you're literally manifesting killing people. Basically, what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, but you would think that a scorpion is it's precise, it's quick, it's deadly. They're not precise. They're definitely not quick. Those fuckers
But
can't
they are
even run,
deadly.
but they happen to be deadly when there's enough of them.
Exactly, which is scary. So
Yeah,
there has to be some type of training where these guys are being briefed on, the public, civilians are your enemies, not,
Yeah, and that's a hard. I really think that these didn't look like old guys. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how long they've been on the force. They just look like guys who had done almost no training. So, but
they seem
I've
like
said,
thugs with
yeah,
badges. That's
yeah.
it.
They just give a random guy. If you go across the street to the bar, and you say, "Hey, man, do you guys want to apprehend this guy or whatever?" Here's a badge. Throw a badge on his chest. It's like that's about what would happen. Just some dudes from the block or so the guy at the local bar. That's how a layman would handle it. Actually, I think some civilians would probably be better if they had any kind of wrestling experience or jiu-jitsu experience or something like that.
That should be part of your training. I believe it is part of the training. At least in Chicago, the
I
CPD,
would hope so.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do have training on how to bring down your, opponent
Or suspect.
or your suspect. Yeah.
These guys clearly
Apparently not.
Or
Like,
they would just miss that day that they skipped that day in class.
they didn't have that part of the Scorpio training there.
Yeah.
So we're talking about both what we know and what we don't know. We don't yet know, or I don't know at the time of making this podcast, how long these officers are on the force. But I did hear on the news last night that one of them was a corrections officer and had an incident where it was either him alone or him with another corrections officer were punching an inmate in the face in a cell.
Oh, hell no.
So,
Great.
prior.
So
I guess
we just
prior
take
to,
them out of the correctional
cream of the
facility
crop,
and
yeah.
just bring them to the,
Right.
Well, I mean, in Chicago, we know we're really short-staffed for police right now. I have a neighbor who was telling me he's working 16 hours a day. He goes home and basically calls it a nap, and then he goes back. So they're short-staffed and they're overworked. So I think some of these departments are short-staffed and overworked are taking people that maybe they normally wouldn't because they need to get people into the academy just to fill spaces.
For sure.
So that's another problem too. Is it's gotten in some places like Chicago, for example, has gotten to a crisis point where they're so understaffed that maybe quality of hires is going to suffer because they just need bodies to like patrol the streets or whatever.
True.
And then, we don't know how comprehensive the academy is, and also to go back to Jocko Willing's point is, he argues that police officers should spend 20% of their time, training. So if they're on a 5-day work week, they should be training, like one of those days should be all training.
Yeah, that's
maybe
not
physical
happening.
training in the morning, maybe after
For
action
sure
review
isn't
on
happening.
videos during the afternoon. Or even after action review of their own videos from prior arrests, like look at what's going on here. This is sloppy. I mean how could that not be a part of the job? Like for professional athletes, like in the NFL, or for fighters when they want to study another fighter, like look what happens when this guy throws that left. He kind of goes like this. So if you want to feint him the same way, let's build that into your striking.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like police officers are not being evaluated like emotionally. They need to get a psych evaluation every so often. Because they're desensitized. I mean, to me, it seemed like all these officers that responded were completely desensitized, didn't give a fuck.
Well, that I think goes to their background as well. What do we know about these officers? When I listen to Project Pat, shout out to Project Pat, or 3-6 Mafia, they talk about how North Memphis is a fucking hood place to live. And, they talk about officers representing their community, right? Like, in terms of racial background, are you representative of your community? Maybe these officers came from a place where it's hood as fuck and they see people jumping other people all the time, and this is just what they think you have to respond to with on the street. That's the manner in which it's appropriate to respond. So it just shows, it seems like to me that would go to lack of training to handle shit properly when you're on the job. Like there's ways you conduct yourself in. Jumping somebody like it's a street, like a gang jumping of one individual from a rival gang or something is not the way to handle that. Like we'll talk more about that as we go through, and we'll also kind of give our final thoughts at the end as well. But we started out where the initial incident begins in an intersection. It appears that there's one squad blocking the car from the front, and then he's kind of flanked from maybe the sides and the rear by another car, and there's 3 to 4 officers already there.
Yeah.
They say, get the fuck out of the car.
Yeah.
They open the door for him.
Gun was
start
drawn.
pulling him out of the car.
Gun was drawn at least one of the officers I'm seeing in the cam, and I'm just trying to see the actual verbiage that was. You got one guy
Called him a bitch.
One guy was from the side door trying to get him out. He didn't really hardly have a chance to get out of the car.
I was going to say he didn't even have a chance to get out of the car
they
when
literally
they pulled him out of the car.
They pulled him out of the. As soon as they opened the door, they don't even give him a chance. He's blocking the doorway. He's blocking the B pillar. There's no way to actually exit the car. The cop's right in your face. Doesn't give him a second. He says, "Get the fuck out of the car." Yanks him out. Like that's pretty wild. And then another guy gets on.
So they're at 100. They pull him out.
Yep, they got about 3 of them on there. They put him on to the ground, and he is resisting. I will say this. I will extend an olive branch to the officers here. He is resisting at this point. He's not getting on the ground. He's fighting him. He's not like punching them or anything, but he's stiffening up. He's tensing up, not going down.
He's tensing up and keeping his arms elevated, and maybe
he's not going to the ground. And
their
they're forced. They have to force him onto the ground. They attempt to tase him. I think they attempt to tase him through the legs, through the jeans, just the contact taser. They call him a bitch. Oh, that's nice. That's helpful. I'm gonna knock your ass out. They say, okay, that's very helpful. I see the mindset going
right.
in.
But do you see how someone would not want to comply with those orders? I wouldn't want to comply with that. I don't know what's going to go down when I literally lay on the ground and I'm following orders. Like, it doesn't seem like it really didn't. I feel.
Oh, now he's getting up. Now he's gonna run.
I feel like it didn't really matter what he did. I mean, they were just out there just to fuck somebody.
Yeah,
they were already at 100. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Here's the thing. Like, when you come into a situation 100%, when you, as a police officer, you put people in the fight or flight mode. We've said it before on this podcast.
And then I'm gonna knock you out. That's a threat to a person.
Yeah. So they automatically, and I've seen several of these videos where they escalate the situation to the point that it didn't need to be. Like, and they put the other person on edge, the civilian on edge, where they're either fighting or running. And here in this case, he's running. He's got 3 guys, yank him out of a car and force him to the ground. He should have just gone limp, gone to the ground on his stomach, and just got, because they weren't beating him at this point when they first nabbed him out of the car. There was no pepper spray, no baton, no punches.
Are you sure? I think they did pepper spray.
They had a taser. I don't know if they deployed it, but they put it to his leg. Okay. I don't know if they utilized it. I don't know if they pulled the trigger on the taser. He wasn't
yelling, because a lot of the times I've seen in these videos when somebody's being tased, they'll start roaring or they'll go limp, and then you can hear him grunting from
I don't think that happened. I don't know if they attempted. It was just all the
foul language and the aggression that.
Yes.
And you know what? Before we move farther, there may have been some pepper spray before he took off running, because I think one of the other officers showed up. Maybe he didn't spray Tyre, but he may have at least deployed it and got some on himself, because I think then they said that when that officer showed up at the destination where they caught him after he ran, he was huffing and puffing and like rubbing his face or something, because he might have gotten some pepper spray on himself.
There was a taser deployed when he tried to flee, so I get that. That's fine. I don't think that's not kosher, but yeah.
But at that point, they really could have subdued him when he was down already.
Had 3 guys on him.
Right. There was no reason why he should have gotten up.
How do you have 3 grown ass men, and these officers, they're pretty much all are bigger than him. And this guy's not a big dude. Like, he looks like he's skinnier than me. Like, so
don't sell yourself short, man. You're half stout, brother. I seen you lifting them 40-pound dumbbells, and your arms swole after you were done. So, but you're got a slim profile, but you're saying he's skinnier than you.
Yes, he is. So, no excuse for letting this guy slip when you got 3 of them there on him on the ground. I mean, these guys, their hands-on skills are just piss poor. I mean, these guys, they really are lacking in their ability to handle a suspect. It's kind of sad.
So if we tell people, like, before we even get to the second part where it gets really ugly, even though it was already at 100, if it appears in the initial video there's between 3 and 5 officers already there before he runs, what would be a good way to subdue a suspect without using pepper spray or tasers? What should they be doing here once he's out of the car in order to get him in cuffs and try to neutralize the situation from escalating any further right away? What should they be doing when you have that many guys?
Well,
as a matter of training and grappling and wrestling and all that.
I just, so we haven't had a lot of training of this in the Army, but we have had like training with EPWs, enemy prisoners of war, and you have like role play scenarios where guys, will get ornery with you, and you got to handle them. You got to take them down. I've had that in LDAC land out of Fort Lewis, where, it was kind of funny. It was just right after Borat was still kind of fresh in people's minds. So all these like role players would like have the Borat accent and stuff. Be like, "Hello, nice to meet you. No, you come, you try fuck my sister." I'm like, "No, we're not trying to fuck your sister. We just want to make sure that you haven't seen any guys with ski masks and guns going around. No, you hear from my sister. You cannot have her. Like they would fuck with you like that." But then they get ornery or whatever, and they they get kind of like a little sketchy or whatever. Then they try to run. And I was in a situation where like I like leg tackled a guy as he was trying to run away, and you basically just and they're trying to get away from you, like you shoot the legs, tackle, and none of these guys really. Now, the main now if you get somebody's legs, obviously they can't run away. But when you control an individual, you want to weigh down their torso. Like you want to put weight on their torso, whether that be like a knee to the small of the back, I don't know, or like side control. You know, in all these positions in jiu-jitsu, you're leveraging their torso basically, and that because that's like where the most of your weight is. So if you can keep their torso on the ground, they're not going to get away from you. And that's kind of what I found when I've been dealing with people in like grappling scenarios. Like, so if you just have one guy, just like, you don't have to George Floyd. I mean, don't put the knee on the neck. Just put the knee in the small of the back, like between the shoulder blades or whatever. While like two of your buddies get you grab a hand. You got three guys. One guy can like basically just put a knee in the small of his back, pin him to the ground, while two other guys grab his arms, or one guy grabs the legs, the other secures the arms. There's different ways to do it, and I'm sure different police officers and departments have different ways of subduing a suspect. These guys have no way of subduing a suspect. They were just like, some of them had like his arm, and he was like kind of up, and they were kind of like pressing on his arm. The other like pressed on his leg or whatever like that. I mean, they didn't really secure his center of mass and actually like secure that to the ground. Like there's like you can even like lean on a guy, you can basically like chest down, shoulder down, pin a guy. Like, Brian, you've been wrestling, you know different ways to pin a person while your buddies like grab the arms. Like there's different ways to skin the cat.
Yeah, and it's the difference with wrestling and with handcuffing a suspect during an arrest is that with the suspect, they usually want them face down so they can get the hands behind the back and cuff them that way, because it's much safer to have somebody cuffed behind with their hands behind their back than it is in front, because it could still, make movements or try to choke somebody with the cuffs or whatever the case may be. But in any event, when it was in wrestling, when we would sprawl to the point you're trying to get a pin, your goal is to keep the person's head from touching the ground so that they can't squirm out, and then also lift their legs so that they can't. And if you can hold them for 3 seconds in that position, you've pinned them. So yeah, we would use our chest, the center of our chest, and I would use that like a lead weight on this guy's chest while he's face up on his back, and I'm trying to cradle his neck and his leg or whatever, and keep him in that position for at least 3 seconds. So that was the goal there. But with as you explained, with cuffing somebody, you're trying to keep their hands, if you had an officer on each hand, that would probably be ideal, so they can't use those to push off the ground and keep on wiggling out or whatever. In the meanwhile, somebody else is weighting their back, and then, or maybe if you were really lucky, you'd have somebody keep their legs too, so they're not pushing off.
Their legs,
they're not trying to push off and hip out with their legs and stuff. And then only to the extent necessary to secure the person in cuffs, and no more than that. Like
and they could
a George
have done
Floyd
that
scenario.
easily.
Yeah, they
had so many. I mean, these guys aren't the police officers aren't skinny. They're buff.
If you
They're
see what
strong.
they did though,
Like
one person was I just watched it, and one person was grabbing an arm as he was standing up. The other person had like the tricep was grabbing, and they all just with an extended arm, like putting no weight on. They just like grabbed him with their hands, and another like had a leg or whatever, and they weren't even hardly like, they were trying to like push him down with their hand, like a single hand or something. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you have to like use your body weight to like pin this guy down. You're not gonna just like strong arm him one handed to the ground. It's like, that's not how it works.
At best, it's like poor training, and at worst,
terrible.
It's giving this guy enough space to get wrong with them so they could really kick his ass. Like,
I'm not
assuming intent here, but when you see something like this, like, are you just waiting for this guy to take a swing at you so you can really start jumping him?
And he didn't, though. That's the thing.
They didn't secure him.
He wasn't combative. He was
not
resisting, but he was not violent towards them.
At no point did he throw a punch that I could see, or a kick. Now, I did hear one of the officers say in the body cam footage, once they finally cuffed him and stopped beating him and spraying him and tasing him after the second incident right at the end, I did hear one of them say that fucker tried to take a swing at me, but we don't see that on camera.
Maybe.
Even if he tried. He didn't do it.
I feel like at that point, though, like when we get into it, after what he had sustained,
you have to find
to that point,
was he trying to put his hands out because he was pepper sprayed, or what? What do you mean swing?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't fault him at that point for like trying to crack a cop. Like, I probably do the same thing if like all they're doing is just beating me, So, Yeah, but we can get into it. So
I think it's really important too to like document when you're going through really bad encounters with cops, because maybe it was a one-off, but when you have cops that have consistently have this pattern, where's internal affairs?
Well, we're blessed by body cams now because they don't lie, and
Right.
although the
That's
audio,
another thing.
Thank
Like,
the
God.
audio doesn't kick in, I
for
think
these
right
things.
away. I don't know if they have to like right when an encounter starting. I think there's like a 30-second lag or whatever, but like the thing that citizens now have on their side is if you got your ass kicked and you were not resisting at all, like completely compliant, you're dealing with a criminal now, not a cop. So like
Right.
that, the video will speak for itself. So you have that on your side. If you're resisting actively or passively, which we'll talk more about as we go on, it's going to show as well. So it's a sword and a shield. But regular citizens can at least take solace in that, knowing that, regular law-abiding citizens, knowing that at least it's going to be on film. So if you're not resisting at all in any way, and you still get your ass kicked or killed, like the video will speak for itself, and God willing, justice will be done afterward. And so Matt, we get into the second part. So the Tyre runs.
He's running,
And
they're
he gets a couple of blocks away, and
they're so fucking slow. These guys, it's like watching a fucking walrus, like kind of waddle its way like up the beach from the ocean, like. Oh, he's got fucking herp. It's like this guy's like gassed. He runs like 50 feet. He's like gassed.
he
I'm
didn't
like,
even get far, and he wasn't even running fast at all.
I'm like, dude, how are you?
And nobody
in law
else seemed to be
enforcement?
outpacing him either. Like he
They were
had
all slow
3 or
as
4
shit.
people with him. I don't know if they were getting in their cars or trying to get in their cars.
I don't
or what
know.
was going on behind him.
Yeah.
The individual who tried to run gets 50 feet and is huffing and puffing like the big bad wolf. There's nobody like running past him. They're all still behind him. I didn't see anybody
He got in the car.
surpass him. And that's an interesting thing too, because there are gaps. First of all, we didn't see anything before the initial incident starts when they're telling him
Right.
get the fuck out of the car. So we haven't seen anything before that. We also don't see how they catch up with him and when they stop him there. They only see, it's weird. Like, I don't know if the guy was just couldn't breathe well because he had been pepper sprayed already or what, but he stops or something, or they somehow catch up to him. I would be interested to see what's going on during that gap.
Yeah, but yeah, like you mentioned earlier, I think they did try to employ pepper spray in the first, because there's a guy getting water washed out of his eyes in the first encounter, as they're still looking for him. I don't know, or
Maybe that was the delay before they all start trying to catch up with
and
us.
now they're gonna all start trying to catch up with
I would be
him.
curious to kind of watch video footage of these police officers, part of that unit, to see if this is something they do all the time. You know what I mean? The
Well,
language,
their past history to see if
their
this
past,
is an MO
yes,
is going to be
because,
an issue.
Right. It's only being released because obviously they killed the guy, but what has been their pattern on the job?
Prior
It's
stops.
got to be bad, because
Yeah.
I'm looking at this while they're still at the intersection where the first encounter was, and the guy just washed pepper spray out of his eye, and he's saying, "I hope they stomp his ass. I hope they stomp his ass." So that's their mindset after this, going into
Yeah.
it.
It's like you pepper sprayed yourself and you hope that they stomp his ass.
Fucking idiot.
Yeah, these guys
They're ready for it. They're ready for a gang being.
Yeah, I mean,
are chodes. Yeah.
I feel like they were just ready that day to bring someone down.
Yeah, it's like they're chasing after John Dillinger here, and it's some guy that like swerved around the lane.
But we don't treat mass shooters like that in America. Like they're at all.
Yeah. Wow. It's pretty crazy. Like, yeah, it's just like let's like the disproportionality of the response is just incredible. Like, it blows my mind. It's one thing if this guy is public enemy number one, or this guy just robbed a convenience store with an AK or something, or like he shot somebody and
Shot a cop or beat up a cop.
Yeah, I get that kind of response for a dangerous
gonna be
individual.
ready
But like
for
a
him.
guy who like swerved around you, like did some a little bit of a reckless move on the road. It's like, this is public enemy number one. This is how you're gonna act. Like, okay. I think there's like maybe either they're just used to, having this response to dealing with
Yes.
people, or they're just like, just wigged out by dealing with people's bullshit. And these type of people that get wigged out
Shouldn't be on the force.
force.
Well,
You
they
should
seem
find
like
another job.
they just started and they had no
So-
training. Is almost what it looked like.
Yeah.
This is people in uniform that aren't acting like people in uniform. This is.
I would
seems more like a
assume
gang
if you
thing.
just came out of training that this is engraved. Like, you're being recorded first and foremost, all of your
Yeah, and
interaction.
they don't care.
Like, it just seems like
crazy.
this is part of their normal behavior. I'm pretty sure training didn't include use excessive force.
Well, I think officers are always going to speak out about an incident afterward, and at the end of the second encounter or the end of this incident, you hear one officer on the video we watched start starting to talk about the incident, trying to justify it a little bit, or saying like why they felt like they could act like that. It's like, if you think that those are the standards, you're poorly mistaken,
Yeah.
for sure. You know.
So I mean, it goes from that. Oh God, this fucking just saw the guy kick him in the face. So
Yeah.
Second incident. Let's talk
Second
about
incident. They catch up with him in the neighborhood. He had run on foot, but it looks like they had taken a couple of police chargers and skirted their way up to him. So they get him, and again, and I'm watching this from the bird's eye intersection cam. When they get up to him initially, he's on the ground. He's kind of like, doing a little turtle, little gopher thing where he's kind of like
Balling up a bit.
Yeah, balling up, and a guy's on top of him, standing on, and again, he's standing
being
on top of him.
punched.
They're not yet, and he's trying to grapple with him, but this dude is like standing over him, and he's like fondling him with his hands, like he's gonna move him around. It's like, dude,
Not
you need to
securing him, not
use your
securing
body weight to push this guy onto this freaking chest, or kind of like, you know how they have like the rear naked choke where you heel into a person's like hip like that. They could get on top of his back and freaking just jam him down like that way. But it's just like they're literally standing over him trying to like push him with their hands. There's not even any leverage there, and this, it's like their incompetence led to frustration, and the frustration led to violence. Like, like they don't know how to handle it, so they reacted like with frustration, like a tantrum, like a child's tantrum. So it's just one cop trying to like turn him over onto his stomach, and he's trying. Oh, now he finally kind of gets it. But again, they're over him. They're not even putting any like weight on him. They just have no idea how to handle a person. They're sort of trying to secure his arms, and then a third guy comes up and blow, just fucking punts him in the face. Oh, just right in the face.
Yeah. So
Fucking
one
brutal.
officer comes up
Yeah.
and just boots this guy in the face.
Boots him in the face, like
With
full
very
bore.
rugged boots on.
Yeah,
too.
full bore. Boots him again 2 times, so we 2 guys trying to subdue him, trying to get the arms. They're derping. They have no idea what the fuck they're doing, and the third guy just standing around 2 kicks to the face, and they're all just like standing over him, like trying to just like move him with their arms. It's like watching the Three Stooges here. I mean, they don't have a fucking clue how to manipulate a person on the ground. So, and then we got a 4th guy coming up,
And that's
deploys
why
baton.
it just gets
4th
so
guy
ugly.
comes up, deploys baton. Now he's gonna baton him. He's like, stand back, I'm gonna baton, plow, starts cracking him with the baton. And at this point, like when you're getting batoned, if you've been kicked in the face, you're getting batoned. I'm gonna pause it here. Like if you're like, oh, get on the ground, put your hands behind your back. That's the most unnatural thing to do, to put your hands behind the back when you're getting you want to be
Getting hit,
defensive.
right.
So he's like this because he's in defense mode, like because he's getting his ass beat. And it's like unless you have extreme presence of mind and probably training and a lot of willpower, a very cool cucumber under pressure, you're not gonna have the presence of mind to put your hands behind your back as getting kicked and baton in the face. It's just not gonna happen. It's not
Getting punched, kicked,
yeah,
everything.
like so all they know how to do is like it's like
And you want him to follow these fucking
At this
orders.
point,
Yeah.
like at this point, he's concussed,
yeah, I think so.
and
he's
at
not
that
gonna
point,
think rationally.
I've been concussed.
Yeah.
Shit doesn't make sense at all when you're concussed. So now this guy's in a situation where he feels like he's in another fucking dimension. He's getting blows rained on him.
Yeah, and I think I can't tell if he stood up in another attempt to flee or if they stood him up. But now that there's, I believe there's 4 of them on him now, and boom, oh man, it's like a gangland beating. One guy's holding him up, and the other guy's overhand right, just shots to the face. Full bore shots to the face as this guy's being held. Oh, just cracking him. And you can see his whole head fly as he connects. And so he's clearly concussed. He's like basically knocked out on his feet here, I think, from taking these big overhand rights. Another big overhand right, just beating him, still on his feet. So he takes about 4 or 5, maybe 6 big shots to the face, goes down on his knees. And as he's basically knocked out standing up. And then they kind of get him down. They're finally got him down on the ground here in his stomach. That only took, 10 minutes for like four or five guys to do this. So at least now they're kind of laying on him. We had two guys kind of dog piled on him as they're kind of still derping around, can't find his hands. It's just pathetic. Like, this guy's like knocked down on his feet and he still can't get his hands behind his back.
So we were watching Donut Operator channel on his review and breakdown of this video. He live streamed it like right away because he does these breakdowns. He wants to discuss these incidences while they're fresh. If you haven't seen him, definitely check out his channel because he is very good at showing you how situations can change within a matter of seconds, and it's very hard to react well. And but anyway, he breaks down the incident, and he mentions how when there's other officers holding him in place, it looks like what you would see in like Goodfellas, where the mafia is like, "Oh, you like that? You want another one? You piece of shit." They're holding their arms. You can't even swing, and you're just getting jumped and hit.
They kick him again. Oh my God! Even after this, after they get him to the ground, another like a fifth guy just comes running in, and as he's on the ground, and the two officers are off, two officers are on. Fifth guy comes in, kicks him in the face again. Like, I hadn't seen that part. Dude, this is fucking insane. Wow. Yeah. And now he's still on his stomach, and it's kind of. I think he's not. I don't know if they're still pepper spraying him or something. Or
he's not responsive at this point.
His legs are moving like he's trying to get away. Now one officer's trying to secure his legs. They're trying to get his hands around his back.
Horrible.
It's hard to watch. Yeah.
It's fucking crazy.
So I think that anybody, like, if you put yourselves in Tyree's shoes, that it'd be a terrible situation to be in. This is about the worst life has to offer.
My heart goes out to the family, to the parents.
Yeah.
Screaming out for his mom too, and
yeah, they said. I heard my mom mentioned she heard in the news that he was close to home, and that's why he was calling out his mom's name. He's, I guess, a few blocks away, and he was just saying "mom." He was yelling out.
Yeah, and we missed. I'm just looking at the full spectrum thing from the overhead traffic cam. So intersection cam, whatever it's called. But it doesn't show in this, and you see in the individual body cam footage, like the close-ups where they're pepper spraying him early on in the encounter, the second encounter, and also just giving him little pepper shots to the face when he's on the ground. So that was somewhere in there in the blur of it. But so it was a series of, they took him down, couldn't secure him, hit him in the face a couple times, pepper sprayed him a couple times, kicked him in the face, batoned him, and then stood him up and just gangland style beating, overhand, big shots to the head, 5 or 6 of those, got him on the ground again, and another like kick to the face basically was the full spectrum of blows that were rained down upon this individual. It's pretty bad. Like, it's some Rodney King shit. So
yeah, this one is a very interesting case because all 5 of the officers are African American, and so is a suspect. And I see people are talking about race as an issue. I think even if you put profiling aside, this is officer training, and the officers need to understand the consequences of, with great power comes great responsibility. First of all, you should have secured this guy right away, searched for weapons, all that stuff. Instead, it doesn't look like a professional that's handling this, and then they treat him like it's like I said multiple times now, a gang beating. So they're talking about race now, and I understand that, things can still be racially motivated regardless if you're the same race as a person or not. But they're emphasizing that. I'm seeing that discussion coming out a lot right now, and I think it's just the training and the lack of understanding of the consequences of your actions. Look what happened to these officers now. Okay, you have 5 officers
they're in trouble
who've been fired and who are being charged with, I believe, second-degree murder.
I believe it's murder. Yeah,
second-degree murder. And everybody's lives within the last month of this incident have now been changed. And the crazy thing is, we're just talking about the beginning of a developing story. with a lot of other police incidents, you see just what the news can show you in like 30 seconds, and that always looks the worst. Now, there are some situations, in many situations, where it comes out later that this person was a bad person and needed to be apprehended. And then you see examples of where officers handle things really, really well. This was, of course, not one of them at all.
Nope, it's not. This is the poster child for the need for increased police training. At least, I mean, it's incredible. Like the response, like they just disbanded the whole unit. They're like, we're not even gonna try to polish this turd. Like, it's just a turd. We're gonna flush it. Like, the whole unit is just gone. So we're like, we're not gonna bother even trying to retrain these guys or anything. Like, we're just scrapping the whole.
What
thing.
was their main objective as a unit?
I
don't
know.
Are they drug enforcement?
Are they like
are
narcs
they
or
violent
something?
crimes?
Yeah.
Are they?
It almost seems like possibly there was something going on prior to, like, did the suspect have anything going on with one of the officers prior to this happening?
See, these are a lot of details we don't know. We don't know the backgrounds of the officers. We don't know the background of Tyre Nichols at this point. We don't know what other incidences those officers handled earlier that night that might have already had them pissed off and ready to take it out on somebody. There's a lot of unknowns, There's
Actually, I should correct that. He's a victim, not a suspect.
Yeah, he's definitely
he's
a victim.
victim.
So I pulled up what the Scorpion unit was, and it stands for Street Crimes Operation. Street Crimes Operation to Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, that's pretty laughably ironic after this. So it was launched in November 2021 and encompassed 40 officers split into 4 teams who patrolled the high crime hotspots throughout the city. So again, I think it goes back to what we were saying. Like, these guys are used to dealing with like kind of the worst of the worst, and they're probably wigged out. And they just eventually, by seeing so much crap day in, day out, like, they become desensitized. Maybe they start looking at the public, at least in those areas, as their enemy or like a scourge or something like that. And when you just are desensitized
I think that was a
to it,
cover-up, restoring peace. That's a fucking cover-up. That the name says it itself. Like,
yeah.
Well, I mean,
crazy.
This is just very superficial what I'm about to say, but like, I do admire cool names, Like, in the army,
it could have been so cool, but it could have been so cool. You guys fucked it
in
up.
World War II, the Germans called the Americans devil dogs.
okay.
And that was worn as a badge of honor for many years by the Americans because they were like released from hell and they wouldn't stop coming. So you have these names that are put upon people. That's obviously not the same comparison, but what I'm saying is, like, what do they have different units, or, like, for example, Matt's part of what they call Fox Company.
Yes.
Foxes are sly and they're killers. They're predators.
Yeah, we're fortunately
But
the only.
Scorpions are small and lethal.
Yeah, which is
They're just
accurate.
gonna kill. They're just gonna
that was
kill.
an accurate derivation
not always
for that.
lethal.
Yeah.
Some scorpions just sting.
They're lethal for their prey, but
Yeah.
that's why they.
For humans, if they just get stung, it just hurts like fuck. Right?
Yeah, but if you're like another insect or like a mouse or something, you're fucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, the devil dogs
clearly these assholes live up to that name.
They definitely do. They lived up to their name. Unfortunately, not. They lived up to the acronym, but not what the acronym stood for.
Right.
It's just terrible. So, but yeah, I mean, we do like cool names, but it's like you try to live up to your name. They failed. They fell very, very short. So that's too bad.
Well, I've already heard it said that we may be fortunate as a nation. It's the winter right now, and not a lot of people want to be out there. And like in Chicago today, it was a balmy 24 degrees or something at a high, and probably in the morning it started out well under 20 or whatever. But
yeah,
there are some protests going on, and as the news says, mostly peaceful. So they don't want to tell you necessarily about any violent issues that happened, but literally this footage was just released within the last few days.
And I think what helps this too is that we've had the footage released, the evidence is there,
Police
that
were
these guys
fired right away.
immediately action was taken. It wasn't like they tried to sweep it on their rug like the
They
Laquan
had.
McDonald
The
thing.
handling of the release and
They
everything
handled
was
it
swift,
well.
very quick. They
The rest came down.
because Laquan McDonald wasn't it? Try to find out when that was released. How long after that incident took place? It might have been a year or two before they released that
Oh,
footage.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's funny, you're watching, like, in those situations, there's been multiple incidences like that, and maybe even including George Floyd. You're watching something that happened so long ago, and then it sets the nation ablaze. Like, if we could, they say delayed justice is injustice, right? It's not
true,
justice.
yeah.
So it's like, if you can get this out right away and be open and transparent, like, this is something really fucked up. If anything, it seems at the very least that the Memphis Police Department handled this well by being open and honest and transparent. Be like, look, this is fucked up. We've eliminated these officers and we're bringing charges against them. You know,
yeah.
because even if they didn't have the proper training, this is lack of judgment here. Was what we saw. It's
or just
this is like,
indifference,
we're gonna whoop
utter
this
indifference.
motherfucker's ass.
Yeah, utter indifference. So, but yeah, I got it up here. So Laquan McDonald was shot in October 2014, and then a video was released. The dashboard video was released in November 2015. So about a year later.
So about a year.
It looks
They
like
sat
what I'm
on a
saying.
video for a year.
Tried to
we
sweep
post
under the rug.
videos in seconds.
I need a break.
Yeah. And
I'm gonna plug my laptop in. Good.
we're back here. There's two final topics and themes that I like to talk about really quick here. I feel like, in general, we in this country treat symptoms and not causes. And I feel that even with some of my own medical care that I've received, it's like, well, why am I even experiencing this stuff in the first place? Can we figure that out? That's what I'd really like to treat, not just, the symptom. And what I mean by that, how I'm tying that into what we're talking about right now, is another example, somewhat inflammatory, is the assault weapons ban, right? We just had one of those. And obviously that's going to be challenged in court.
As it should be.
Yeah, and when you say as it should be, like,
Just legally speaking.
I feel personally, just as a matter of personal opinion, that if the government can have an AR-15, then we should be able to have an AR-15, because the very reason we formed America is because the government was fucking us somewhere else, and we don't want to be overwhelmed by superior firepower. I know that's like
at least as far as the standard infantryman is concerned. So people say a lot of opponents of or proponents of stricter gun regulations are saying, hey, the founding fathers didn't have assault weapons. Hate to break to you, but neither do we as the public. Assault weapons are a selective fire weapon or fully automatic weapon. Those we can't have without a special federal license anyways. So those dumbasses think that we have that as a public, which we actually don't. But we have weapons commensurate with the standard infantryman of the day, and that is a medium caliber rifle. So semi-automatic rifle. And that's like an AR-15, which doesn't stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armalite rifle, for you dumbasses out there who don't know that yet. And so what was my point is, what was the musket in the 1700s? That was a standard infantryman rifle, was a fucking musket. That was the assault weapon of its day, essentially. So what is the AR-15? It's the civilian equivalent of the M4 carbine, basically. It just doesn't have selective fire. So it's just single shot, semi-automatic. So one pull, one bullet, as opposed to one pull, 3 bullets if you're selective fire. Different iterations of the M16 have full auto. But anyways.
As far as the Constitution is concerned, when you look at the Constitution as a whole, and then the Second Amendment specifically, is that, in my opinion, or my belief, the Founding Fathers who drafted the Constitution left things very general in certain situations because they wanted them to withstand the test of time. Mm-hmm. They didn't know if you'd be shooting at people with, Elon Musk laser beams or something that you power with your mind in the future. They had no idea, but they just said you have the right to keep and bear arms. They didn't get specific about, was it, is it knives? Is it guns? Is it fully automatic guns?
Cannons.
They only knew what they knew at the time. They just knew that they didn't want government, forcibly forcing people into tyranny. And we saw videos from Australia, Canada, of police officers pointing these fucking military weapons at civilians. It's like if you get to the point where, like in China, the government is overwhelming the people with superior force, like that's exactly what the founding fathers wanted to avoid, because England used to divide and conquer. They'd come in and round up weapons, they would take them away and have their will with the people there and do whatever the fuck they want and take over. That's how they did it. It's simple strategy. But the point of me bringing this up about treating symptoms and not causes is owning an AR-15 doesn't make you shoot people on a mass level, but mental fucking problems and depression and desire to harm others and yourself, that's what does it. So it's banning the assault weapons is the easy way out. When Matt and I discussed this yesterday, the Highland Park shooting, for example, that freaky looking little alien motherfucker who decided to shoot up a parade, had posted, and fact check me on this, Matt, I believe I read it several hundred times about shooting incidences and harming people in mass harm.
Or so I don't know much about the Highland Park shooter, but what was that one little what was his name, Nicholas something? I don't really like to memorize these guys' names because they don't deserve to be remembered, but there was one I don't know, there's so many of these in this country, it's fucked up that you almost get them confused. But the Highland Park was here, that was Chicago, and I believe there was, I'm thinking of what was his name, Nicholas something. It was I don't know. Anyways, but I was thinking of the other one. But
so what was the point you were making though?
Was that I couldn't recall if it was that Nick kid who had shot up a school, who had posted multiple times where the feds had actually looked at it, but they couldn't do anything, or if it was the Highland Park shooter. Maybe it was both. I don't know. In terms of their precursors indicating a predilection or predisposition to committing mass murder.
In the situation of the Highland Park shooter, I think his parents knew he had some kind of proclivity for that kind of shit too. Okay. I think they're being sued currently. I don't have that in front of me, but I if I recall correctly, this is what I've heard.
They are.
But so thank you.
Oh yeah, Parkland shooter.
Shooter. Yeah. So treating symptoms, not causes, in terms of this Tyre Nichols incident with these officers, is they fired these officers and they're now charging them with second-degree murder. But treating the cause would be going back to training, and that's why I brought that up.
Yeah.
Like proper training and understanding of the consequences if you step outside of that clearly. And I'm not talking about a minor infraction where it's questionable. Hey, the guy was just in a fit of rage and, really came down hard on this guy when he was on the ground or something. I'm talking about what we just saw, like a beatdown. So I think we need to be very cautious about treating causes and not symptoms. I think that's where real justice lies. Yeah,
and to that point, like I've seen officers who actually do have training. Like, I mean, I don't know if I played you this video, but there's one where there's like an arrest that was at a gas station when a guy was physically combative with the officer as he was trying to arrest him, like throwing punches and stuff. And this was a big boy, stout perp. But the officer was also a big boy too. He was fit and he knew his jiu-jitsu. It took one officer who knows what he's doing to apprehend like maybe a 230-pound man who's fucking muscled, real strong. If you know what you're doing, you're competent and you're fit, you don't need a gang of 5 people. Like a competent officer that knows his jiu-jitsu can overwhelm a suspect and apprehend him. Like it's night and day difference between these Memphis bozos. Yeah.
It would take a lot of training to feel that comfortable to be able to do that, especially if you're against.
You got to be the right size.
The skills, I'd rather know.
Yeah, you got to be the right size.
Even as a smaller guy, I'd rather know the technique, and I would feel much more confident having to take on a larger individual.
It was beautiful to watch. Like, and the guy did he exerted as much force as he needed to, but not more, to apprehend the suspect. Even as they're grappling on the ground, he was using his body weight to control him and move him. The guy was throwing closed fist punches at the officer, and the officer did these weird palm heel things to like distract the guy, like pop him in the face and disorient him, and then get his arms and actually get the cuffs on him. So it was like a master class in how to apprehend a suspect. Yes.
Perfect is not possible, but better is. We should be working toward that.
Yeah. It's like cops need to watch that video. This is how you apprehend a suspect, open-handed. Like, It was a master class. So I'm not saying every cop should be expected to be that proficient, but like
I feel like you do to a certain
You should
extent
strive.
because you're not going out there to, you never know what you're going to get when you go out, when you answer to any calls. But it should be another thing with the police officers. They don't have that type of training. Police officers that do have a lot of jiu-jitsu is because they invest their personal time and finances into that. Police officers shouldn't have to tap into their personal finances for that. If what we want them is to go out there to secure, subdue suspects, they shouldn't have to pay for that out of pocket. Like, it should be part of their package.
Oh, yeah.
Along with, obviously, therapy, lots of therapy.
We task police officers with an elite job that comes with elite power and elite responsibility, but we don't train them like elite people. Mm-hmm. We look at UFC fighters that are elite. They're fine-tuning their diet, the fuel that's fueling their body, that controls inflammation and how they feel, and they control their sleep and their exercise and their routines, and they train the same movements. Rolling.
But you can't have that if you're working 16 hours a day either.
Yep. That's why we're saying a 20% rule is we're just floating out ideas here to make something better.
Yeah.
And it certainly can be better right now. Like, you would think the image I had of America growing up was we were this great force for good. And what I would expect to see is, like, in the military or in the police training is, like, the grappling, the striking over and over again until it becomes muscle memory. And these people are elite. Like, they know how to handle somebody. And if the civilian hasn't done enough to learn what they have, well, then the police officers have the advantage. But in any event, I think that this incident is a moment where good leaders can shine. And what do I mean by that? You look back to, like, Martin Luther King Jr. People had it out for him. They had death threats for him that eventually became reality. And yet he did his protest peacefully and left us with some of the most profound thought that we'll ever have to ponder in our interactions with other human beings. Judge people by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And I really hope that we continue working toward that as a people, because we can all get along. I believe it's possible. We just have to recognize people as people and not as a race. And I believe, during George Floyd, there wasn't a peaceful protest. There was destruction of a city while we stood back and watched, and that's not good for society either. Law and order is the glue that keeps society together, in my opinion. But we have to be very conscious of our obligations as citizens as well. And it's not just the police. This is a two-way street. Mm-hmm. It's unfair to hold police to an extremely high standard while not holding the public to any standard at all. And saying we need to abolish police. No, I think that's really the wrong idea. We deal with, we're at a point now where, unfortunately, the police they don't have a good public image, but that doesn't give the public a blank check to fight, to resist, to argue. One point, I was talking to a police officer just the other day, and he said the time and place to dispute the legality of arrest or your treatment is in a courtroom after the incident is over.
With your lawyers.
Resisting in the street, whether it be verbally, passively, like you're not listening to commands when you're told to do something, or physically, when you're now under physical restraint, the time to dispute all that is when you're pulling the body cam and the lawyer's talking it over in front of a jury or a judge after the fact. When in another plug again for Donut Operator, if you want to see how brutal police can have life in the streets dealing with people, watch some of his videos. He will tell you when he thinks that the police were in the right or the wrong, or he always usually says, well, make up your mind for yourself and leave your comments below. So there's numerous instances that never get media attention where officers are getting shot at immediately,
Right.
where a suspect is right here in Chicago. We had one where a suspect had a concealed gun and it didn't show up while they were patting him down during a frisk.
It was basically
Because
clenching in his booty
butt
cheeks
or something in his crotch.
like,
He tells the officers, I want my hands in front of me because I have a skin condition. Whatever the fuck that means. Hey, I'm not here to be doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
He's riding in the squad car to lockup with his hands behind his back. He somehow inches the cuffs and the chain below his butt, gets them out below his legs, and then gets the cuffs out from underneath his legs and into the front and retrieves the fucking Glock from his crotch.
Yeah.
And as soon as they open the door at lockup, starts unloading and gets a gray shot to the guy's jaw. Like, hits him in the fucking jaw. The guy goes down for cover and then gets ready to start returning fire from behind the car, laying on the ground after being hit by a bullet in the jaw. And then other officers that are pulling up behind him. Luckily, he had a couple people with him.
Yeah.
Because if not, he
That
might
would've
have
been
been
bad.
assassinated right there while he was laying on the ground. But the guy started catching fire from other individuals. And this guy got into a stolen car when the police were there to pick it up. Like, they were responding to the scene. They were going to call in somebody to retrieve it. And he gets into the car right in front of him.
Right in
They're
front
like,
of
dude,
him.
You can't
There's a
fucking
cop
drive
car
away in that. That's a stolen car.
right behind this. It was a stolen Porsche Macan, I
Nice
think.
car.
And this guy just walks right across the street, right in front of a marked car, police car, gets into the fucking stolen car that he stole. I'm this dumbass. Like, it's like, dude, if I boosted a Porsche and I see a cop parked behind my
I'm
storage,
not going in.
I'm not gonna go get in
So
the stolen
bold.
Porsche. Like, it's so fucking bold. Guy's a dumbass. And how does he end the day? Well, with a fucking round to the spine and paralyzed in the shootout with the cop. They fucking plugged his ass. And even the guy that got shot in like the jaw, he got up, he like kind of self-revived. And as they're shooting, he starts getting in the fight too, starts cracking off shots at the guy, and they're coming around the car after the guy goes down, and he puts like 3 courtesy shots in him. Like,
Well,
the guy
because the
didn't-
guy was still active, though, at that
he was
point.
still moving around. Like, he wasn't like just flat out laid out,
Yeah.
flatline. He was still I think he was still shooting. But
Shit.
yeah, put some courtesy shots
in
in.
those
It was nice.
situations,
So,
can reasonable people understand why officers be angry? You open
Of
a
course.
fucking squad car door
Got shot in
and
the face.
shots are flying out at you right away. And this,
Yeah.
you multiply that by like thousands, because there's other videos. There's one, guy's in a gas station, 2 cars come up. This guy's got warrants, had a long arrest rap sheet. Not that race matters, but the guy was white. Opens the door and starts shooting on the fucking cops immediately, and they have to fucking start dumping rounds into his car. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, what do we expect? Police officers just stand there and get killed? No, you
Yeah,
have to fight
well,
back, and you have to do it swiftly
Those
and
are
properly.
justified shootings by the
Totally.
cops,
And there's
right?
so many of them,
There's
though. That's what I'm
tons.
saying. Like, they don't
Yeah.
get the same. We were talking about fair balance. They don't
Yes.
get the same exposure. They don't show when cops handle things well. Like, it would be nice
Of
in an
course.
ideal world if there was a rule where, like, hey, look at this really bad one, but also here's an instance where they handled the shit really, really well, or at least say, look, this is what they're dealing with. What happened to honest reporting and people who will level with you for another fellow human being? The thing that I think one of the biggest problems is the fucking laws about how police conduct themselves are written by people that are never exposed to it in some fucking Marble Palace building, City Hall, that never have to be a police officer and never have to deal with it, but they want to tell them how to do their job in the street when they're dealing with the most violent fucking criminals that are out there.
yeah, it's true. It's true. It's armchair quarterbacking, and it's crazy. Like, just like we were talking about the other day. It's just the amount of crazy shit that cops deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, because it's significant. I was talking about the degree of significance. It's significant what happened here with that Memphis Scorpion fuck show unit that killed a guy. It's very significant. It's tragic. It's a horror. But it's also equally as significant when a cop saves people from a mass shooter.
Exactly.
And I those videos are out there. There's like people, like, I see some of them where there's like, active shooter. This guy's just going around like capping people or whatever, and the cop just runs right into the fray, domes this guy from across a highway or whatever like that. And,
I've seen that video, yeah.
And it's just like they do that, and they're nowhere to be found.
There was a
in the
lady who
media.
started shooting an airport.
Nowhere to be found.
Fucking lady shoots back at the cop. It goes right through a computer electronic terminal that he was taking cover behind, and he took her out.
Yeah. And it
she
shit
wasn't even
happens a
fully
lot.
dead. I think they took her into custody. She lived. She caught one in the gut, but then went down and wasn't shooting anymore.
Yeah.
And so there's so many instances out there. But the point is, they don't really get emphasized.
They don't.
They only show when police are being complete assholes, which seems to be based on the numbers, the minority of the fucking time.
Yeah.
Yes, but going back to like defunding the police, it doesn't mean like or abolishing. It's defunding asshole units like the Scorpion. That's what that is for. Why are we paying so much money or massively funding these types of units?
It's just dumping money. When it's a unit like that, it's pissing away money down the drain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But why don't
So
we use it for
defunding-
better training?
Exactly.
Is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
take any money that you're investing in
So
some bullshit.
Redirect
organizations,
it.
when they're
Not
saying
defund, refund to the fucking where it needs to be used.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when organizations are saying like, defund the police or abolish them, it's more so literally police brutality. It's aimed for that. It's not aimed for police officers who are genuinely doing their job. You know what I mean? Like, we're funding the shit out of, hey, just bring on all these police officers, no fucking training, do this, do that, they're not bringing in peace. Mass incarcerations for stupid little shit or even killing civilians.
We really got to be careful about how we sentence people for nonviolent offenses.
Yeah.
But having said that,
It's not great.
about for a young man who's about to be a father, what kind of place, what kind of community do I want my child to grow up in? I want to grow up in a place where people who are going to do bad, who are going to do evil, are treated appropriately, and that the police have their back and they have the ability to apprehend people who deserve to be brought to justice, and then for them to actually be brought to justice. One last point on this issue is Matt and I were just out to dinner with a good friend of ours the other night who's a public servant, and he works in firefighting and emergency medical response, and was punched in the face by somebody who's combative, and he didn't punch her back. It turns out it was actually a female, and that's a felony offense, and she got community service. So it's what kind of message are we sending to fucking people that this is acceptable behavior by grown adults in a free country, that you're going to assault somebody who's there
To render aid
because they
Giving
were
you
like
medical
drunk
aid.
or on drugs or whatever it was and was fucked up, and punches them in the fucking face.
That's fucked up.
And the officer is like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to press charges? He's like, yeah, I want to press charges. So anyway, the point is, it's not just the police, it's other people that are getting, assaulted in the street, and, get and the people that are responsible for this don't get charged. Like, I think, as a matter of deterrence, if you're going to be doing a year or more in prison for fucking punching somebody, a peace officer or a fucking public servant in the face, do you think about it twice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we're at a point right now where, you have people out there, and there are probably a lot of them trolling, just saying, it should be allowed to do it. Go fuck yourself, you know what I mean? I don't want to hear that shit. I shouldn't be punched in the street just like the fucking police officer shouldn't either.
Right.
But in any event, we do want to shift over to police authority during traffic stops, what they can do, and what is the legal justification as interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court. And we also want to finish on a very cool article that I found here by the Illinois American Civil Liberties Union, what to do if you're stopped by the police, because there was a lot of good things in here that would be helpful, I think, and just are good general rules and guidelines that everybody should know, from teenagers all the way on up to adults in America. So I was doing my research last night. I figured this would be a good time to talk about trying to avoid more incidents like this in America, because Tyre Nichols is a very unfortunate situation. It's a very sad, very nasty moment that we're going through right now, currently in our history. And how can we avoid, or as citizens, maybe how we can do a better job as well. So I started doing research. I found this article. So this is, I wanted to compile the authority, and this person did a great job. I didn't have time. We were always so busy. We work. We have all this stuff going on. I didn't get a chance to really delve in myself, but this is a great outline. We had a great criminal procedure professor in law school. Shout out to Tim O'Neill. I would love to have you on the podcast sometime, because we're going to talk about very just general summaries of this. You could go into great detail with great citation about traffic stops and police arrests and what's allowed and what's not and why. But I found this article, Traffic Stops by Jeff Welty. This is from December 2010, so some of the citations in here might be older, but I believe these laws from the U.S. Supreme Court still stand. This is some of the case law that's in here is from North Carolina, so this article was written for North Carolina and with citations to some North Carolina case law, but the case law that I focus on that he cited is U.S. Supreme Court law, which is the law of the land. And just so people out there listening know, a lot of the law is going to follow the Supreme Court law or, provide greater protections to citizens where it can in some states, but most of them are going to be, the laws are going to be very similar as to how police can deal with you in public because of U.S. Supreme Court law is supreme. It rules over other law. Mm-hmm. So when can a police officer pull you over? What standard do they have to abide by, or what cause do they have to have? Well, here, under the Terry v. Ohio U.S. Supreme Court case 392 U.S. 1 from 1968, it's a reasonable, articulable suspicion to stop somebody in a traffic stop. And what types of offenses, Matt mentioned this earlier, it can be a very minor traffic stop. It could be failure to signal, it could be weaving, it could be
going over the line,
running
slightly.
a red light.
Yeah.
Those, or not stopping at a stop sign, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Especially
even driving slowly,
are
even
you driving too slow? What's up with you? Is there a problem here, or driving too fast?
So.
Also, what's the problem with you? Usually, it seems to be a totality of the circumstances type of thing, like in terms of investigating things further. Like if you're going to investigate somebody for DUI or driving under the influence, first I saw them swerve, and then I observed them for longer, and then I also saw them, fall asleep at the stoplight or, run right through a red or something like that as well. And now they're investigating something bigger other than just the original alert of a traffic violation themselves. Then also, this is the part that can be upsetting or frustrating to regular everyday citizens because they may feel that police are harassing them, or in an age that police are harassing them. So we have what they call pretextual stops. That means that they stop you on a minor violation, but they really suspect you in their mind of this guy's probably up to something else. Yeah. So what do we have here? If an officer, and I'm quoting here from Jeff Welty's article, if an officer has reasonable suspicion that a driver has committed a crime or an infraction, the officer may stop the driver's vehicle. This is so even if the officer is not interested in pursuing the crime or infraction for which the reasonable suspicion exists, but rather is hoping to observe or gather evidence of another offense. That is Wren versus the United States, citation 517 U.S. 806. This is a case from 1996, emphasizing that the subjective intentions of the officer, i.e., looking for further evidence of crime outside of just running the stop sign, are irrelevant. So what the officer's thinking is relevant. If they've committed an infraction, you can be pulled over for that.
All they care is that the legal standard has been met. Like subjective intentions of the officer are irrelevant at that point.
Yes, as long as there's been some kind of offense, even minor, it does what the officer is thinking about further crime is not irrelevant. So then we see common issues, and I wrote a little note here: totality of the circumstances. If you're looking for a bigger crime under this Wren versus United States, although the subjectivity doesn't matter, the legality of a stop is usually based on the totality of the circumstances. If you're going to be investigating somebody for DUI or driving under influence or something like that, they'd want to see multiple things: weaving, sitting at a stoplight parked when there's clearly a green light, unsafe movement, lack of turn signals. One interesting note here, you'll notice on page 3, it says late hour or high crime area.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
The United States Supreme Court has held that the presence in a high crime area, standing alone, is not a basis for concluding that a suspect is engaged in criminal conduct. And it goes into the specifics of the case. That's Brown versus Texas, 443 U.S. 47 from 1979. Although the stop in Brown took place at noon, presence in a high crime area at an unusually late hour is also alone insufficient to provide reasonable suspicion. Moving on to investigating during the traffic stop, this is where we're going to be talking about officer safety.
I just wanted to say, I saw one thing that was interesting on page 2 about reasonable suspicion. So cops can basically, even if they don't have reasonable suspicion to make the stop itself, they can kind of fuck with you and your reactions to that, even though they're not pulling over, they can still fuck with you, and your reaction to that can create reasonable suspicion. So, for example, so say an officer observed a driver driving 45 miles an hour in a 55 miles per hour zone. He's got no reasonable suspicion yet at this point, but he can activate his blue lights, and then that driver's reaction to the blue lights can create reasonable suspicion. So the driver ignores the blue lights, continues driving, and weaves within his lane before stopping. The seizure may be upheld based on the driver's weaving in addition to his slow rate of speed. So they can almost set you up to create reasonable suspicion.
And that's a Second Circuit Court case from 2005. That's United States versus Swindon.
It's kind of interesting. So essentially just
407 F3rd 562.
Yeah, essentially just for people's knowledge, your Fourth Amendment rights, your rights against unreasonable searches and seizures, they're extremely limited on the public roads. They can pull you over for almost anything. Even I think even if you have partially vision obstructed, say you have some fat ass dice hanging from your fucking rear view mirror, your vision is obstructed. From
For
that, and they can
for
safety of the road purposes.
Even though that's a small thing, it's
they can still pull you over
see around my dice or whatever.
But it's they can make an argument saying hey, look, you know what? Your vision, you're driving with obstructive windows. Even if you don't brush the snow off your fucking windows too sufficiently, they can say you're driving with obstructive vision. So your rights, your Fourth Amendment rights on public roads are slim to none.
Good point to continue on to. We talk about the Fourth Amendment. Under the Fourth Amendment, you have the right to be free in your person, property, papers, and effects from unwarrantable searches and seizures. Unwarrantable and maybe it's unreasonable.
I think it's unreasonable.
Unreasonable.
Yeah.
Unless supported by oath or a warrant supported by oath or affirmation. So, a traffic stop or other arrest is considered a seizure of a person, and that's why these things are not taken lightly. Although it may be a temporary or not very intrusive, just being pulled over if you were given a warning or a ticket, it's not a major seizure. Then a search is going through a person's property, papers, or effects to find evidence of crime. So investigation during traffic stops. We should mention that some searches of vehicles, because they're so mobile and they can be moved and evidence can be lost or destroyed, do not require a warrant. They just require probable cause of a crime being committed, and that starts with usually a traffic stop for reasonable articulable suspicion, which is the lower standard, legal standard of stopping someone under the Terry case.
Yeah, it's not yet probable cause. Probable cause comes into the equation once we're talking about search of the vehicle and or person. So we're still at just reasonable suspicion right now.
Yeah, so reasonable suspicion. So investigation during the stop, this goes a lot to officer safety as a public policy. This is what the Supreme Court of the United States seems to be trying to protect as officer safety. Ordering occupants out of the vehicle. In the interest of officer safety, an officer may order any or all of a vehicle's occupants out of the vehicle during a traffic stop. That is Pennsylvania v. Mims, 434 U.S. 106, 1977 case where the driver was legally ordered under the Supreme Court law to exit the vehicle, followed by Maryland v. Wilson, 519 U.S. 408, 1997, where the passengers were ordered out of the vehicle for officer safety to see if there was guns, maybe perhaps on their person or other weapons. Likewise, by implication, it seems that an officer can also order you to stay in the vehicle if they feel that their safety is being threatened by you trying to emerge from the vehicle or come at them outside of the vehicle. So just so you know, if you're getting pulled over and the officer asks you to exit the vehicle, that is a lawful order, and you should comply, or you risk escalation with the police officer to something worse than just stepping out of the car.
And although it should go without saying, I've seen traffic stop videos where people are like, oh, I don't have to provide an identification when I'm pulled over a traffic stop. I don't have to provide proof of insurance. No, you do. You do. If they,
yeah, I think
they
it's a
pull you
common
over,
misconception that you don't have to get out of the car either. Like, they're not just doing this because they're trying to be like a bad parent or something. They're telling you to get the fuck out of the car. Like, they have legal justification to do that. People need to understand that.
A lot of people don't understand. So extreme dumbasses like sovereign citizens don't even understand the ID thing. They have all their, oh, I'm not driving, I'm traveling bullshit or whatever. We can talk about sovereign citizens on another podcast. That's a lot of fun material there. But yeah, so most people know that you have to provide,
ID
driver's license and registration for and proof of insurance and depending on what state. But yeah, officer safety. A lot of people don't know that they can lawfully order you to exit the vehicle for officer safety. So that you got to get out of the car if they tell you. So
the next is frisking the occupants. Again, for officer safety, a frisk does not follow automatically from a valid stop. It is justified only if the officer reasonably suspects that the person or people to be frisked are armed and dangerous. Terry v. Ohio again. Going on, an officer may frisk a passenger based on reasonable suspicion that the passenger is armed or dangerous, even if the officer does not suspect the passenger of criminal activity outside of that. That is Arizona v. Johnson. That is 555 U.S. 323 from 2009.
Yeah, let's talk about reasonable articulable suspicion, the Terry standard. What does that mean?
What do you see that you want to frisk this person? Are they fidgeting? Are they reaching for something?
Yeah.
Are they making quick movements? What's happening there?
So it's essentially, the short of it in layman's terms is it's reasonable ground to suspect that a person has committed or is committing a crime. So it stops sort of a mere suspicion. It's greater than mere suspicion, but stops short of a certainty. So what would that translate to? Like what would you think would be an example that would translate to for like a Terry stop? Like you see a bulge in a guy's jacket, or he's fidgeting with his pockets or something like that. You think he might have a weapon on him, something to that effect, where you're not sure, oh, this guy's got a gun on him, but you think it's possible, like based on his actions, and maybe that looks like a bulge in the coat or something like that. Just in terms of a weapon, maybe I would say that would be probably sufficient for a Terry stop, which is basically a pat down. Like it's not a full cavity search, but you're checking your waistband, make sure the guy's got nothing on him, no weapons or anything like that. Like it's not an in-depth search though. So that's basically a Terry stop. It's a pat down, stop and frisk. So
yeah, pat down as opposed to emptying all pockets. That's usually something that's done after the arrest.
Yeah,
you'll see like on Cops, the TV show where they have somebody on the hood and then they're taking out crack rocks and fucking crunched up dollar bills and like a switchblade or something. Anyway,
Glocks in the booty cheeks.
Glocks in the booty cheeks, like in Chicago, fucking the wild west. Get your cowboy hats. It's the wild west
I'm
out there.
still like, did he have a big booty for that?
It's a fat old man.
I don't
booty.
know. I mean, it was in his crotch somewhere, his booty or whatever. He was holding it in. It didn't fall out of his boxers or anything. It's pretty impressive.
How?
Just
like,
wedged
he must
it between.
Squat very well. Like,
Yeah.
he must.
He's just clenching
jeans,
for
his jeans
dear
must have
life.
been tight
Yeah.
enough that
They were
it
pretty
stayed
tight.
in place well enough until he got into the car where he could retrieve
Just
it
in
out of there.
his crotch seam. It was like it really
He had
held
it hidden where
when
they did just a regular pat down, they didn't feel it. It wasn't sticking down the side of his leg or anything. It must have been just right up in the crotch.
But
area.
that's a
big
teachable
ass booty.
Yeah, that's a teachable moment though. That thing for officers, like, and I think Donut operator mentioned that. He's like, teachable moment. Don't be afraid to really fucking get up in there when you're patting down a suspect, when you're arresting a suspect,
don't
checking
like
for
purposely grab their
weapons.
genitals, but make sure
like-
whatever you're touching there is not a fucking.
But
steel
don't do just a
object or
cursory, just like really like to see if you can like feel a weapon, and that's just like casual, like because that's what they kind of did. So it's you really gotta got to be thorough when doing that. But anyways,
having the visuals of that, like, damn, like I have a lot of squats to do. Gotta grow my butt.
Can I pack a Glock in the booty cheeks yet?
Goals. Just kidding.
Yeah, put that on the Instagram. Like, all right, guys, we're going for the Glock test. Let's see if we got progress here.
Challenge.
The Glock challenge. It's like first the Glock 19, next the Glock 22. Like, I forget. I can't keep track of all the Glock models, and they don't make sense either. But
yeah, they should be named after the caliber that they are. Or
they're not. Yeah, like
yeah,
they're
it's
just,
like, what does this even mean?
It's crazy.
Car frisks. In Michigan v. Long, 463 U.S. 1032, a 1983 case, the Supreme Court held that the search of the passenger compartment of an automobile, the glove box, limited to those areas in which a weapon may be placed or hidden, is permissible if the police officer possesses reasonable suspicion that the suspect is dangerous and the suspect may gain immediate control of the weapons. Matt mentioned earlier that, before we were on the podcast, that this is usually limited to the officer searching places that are within arm's reach of the occupant. So something in the backseat or the trunk, not really, you shouldn't be searching back there necessarily, unless, it's just below where anywhere they can basically reach.
Yeah.
And if it's near the back of the other seat, yeah, probably they can look under the back of that seat. The back of their own seat would be pretty tough, but they could go back there while you're in the squad car reviewing their information with ID and all that, and then retrieve that and then start opening fire on you. So probably under the seats is allowable. Console in the center, console in the front,
but
glove box.
But compartment on the far back rear door, probably not. That's out of reach. Because a lot of doors have a compartment with your gloves, water bottle, and whatever the fuck. That's probably not it for most cars. But yeah, certainly right under the seat, probably glove box too. Center console, yeah, good to go. Definitely trunk, rear compartment area. If you got a wagon or SUV, nah, outside of reach. So yeah.
Questions about unrelated matters. The United States Supreme Court held in Mueller versus Mena, 544 U.S. 93, 2005, that questioning is not a seizure. So the police may question a person who has been detained about matters unrelated to the justification for the detention, meaning like something that wasn't for blowing the stop sign. They can ask about crimes, even without an individualized suspicion supporting the questions.
Can't hurt to ask.
Yeah, and then Arizona versus Johnson in 2009 kind of clarifies things, I believe. Let's see what they say here. An officer's inquiries into matters unrelated to the justification for the traffic stop, this court has made plain, do not convert the encounter into something other than a lawful seizure, so long as the inquiries do not measurably extend the duration of the stop. So we remember from Professor O'Neill's class that a routine traffic stop for a ticket should be like 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes tops. But you should be able to get a person's license, make sure there's no warrants, that everything's valid, that there's nothing related to that or hasn't been suspended or revoked for whatever reason. And then make sure that the insurance is valid. That should all, from start to finish on something like that, should be 10 to 15 minutes, probably tops.
Yeah, and it's bringing that up, segues into the use of drug-sniffing dog that we mentioned earlier.
This is
great,
it's outline.
Yeah, it is fantastic. It's pretty all-encompassing, just, so it's sometimes it takes a while for a canine unit to get there, though. So you say 10 to 15 minutes, but when you tag a canine, is there a canine tag on time leeway extender, basically, for in terms of
if they smell drugs, maybe if you smell weed in the car or something, then maybe they could, now you got to wait and we're gonna.
But just normally on a traffic stop, if they just want to throw a dogo in there, it shouldn't exceed 10 to 15 minutes to still be within.
I think so. I don't think they can make you wait all day for a drug sniffing dog to get there, but sometimes you have a canine unit pulling them over. They already have the canine there.
Then they can use
or there's one that's nearby and they're already in the middle of traffic. So hey, swing on by over here. I'm on First and Main or something. Come on over here and run the dog around the car. But what they say Having a dog sniff a car is not a search, and so requires no quantum of suspicion. That is an Illinois case, Illinois versus Cabela's, 543 U.S. 405, 2005. So Illinois is involved, but it's in the United States Supreme Court to be specific. And what do they mean by that? Well, a dog sniffing a car that's out and open in public outside is not a search. This is not where somebody's entering something. They're not. It's out there in public. It's a mobile thing. You could go out there with your dog right now if you had one and walk around the car. It's just out there, right? This is not something that you're invading privacy. It's out in the public. It's in the open, etc. Therefore, a dog sniff is permitted during any traffic stop so long as the sniff does not extend the stop. So
I see.
If you already have a canine unit there, is the responding unit or the observing unit, or there's one nearby, as long as it doesn't prolong well beyond the normal time of, and you got to be flexible here. They're not going to say 16 minutes is unconstitutional, but 15 is.
We got an example down.
It has to be reasonable.
We got an example down here, at least from North Carolina, right? The North Carolina Appellate Court, where it found a delay of approximately 4 minutes to allow a dog sniff was de minimis. In other words, means fuck all. So now when you get it, if it increases it to like 10 or 15, then we're kind of in a gray area, though. I would think so. Just in terms of a metric to base your time off.
And I wanted to make a personal point from my own experience here. I would say that use of a drug sniffing dog in my own personal experience is permitted, but it's rare. Yeah. I've been stopped, whether as a passenger in a vehicle or a driver of a vehicle, at least 6 or 7 times, maybe more. There's times where I've been searched while my car is parked at a park. I was like maybe 17, 18, and I had 2 friends with me. We were in a park because we had nowhere else to go. We weren't 21 yet. We couldn't go to the bars or whatever. And so we were just smoking cigarettes in the park, and they thought maybe we were doing something worse, like smoking weed, which was illegal at the time.
Oh, my God.
Or whatever we were doing. But they literally parked like a T behind my car so I couldn't get out of the space. It was cold. We were outside without jackets on. They wouldn't let us get our jackets. I asked the guy, can I get my jacket? It's fucking freezing out here. It was like November going into December, and it was a cold time. So no, the 3 of us are out there. All with our hands on the car. They went through everything in my car. I consented to a search because I didn't have anything to hide. The worst thing we had was the cigarettes. I knew it, so I'm like, I don't have anything to hide. You can go through my car, which is, although I had the right not to. I mean, you're a 17-year-old kid, and 2 officers are there, and then a third one pulled up who was off duty and says, hey, he says, guys, I'm an off-duty officer. I noticed you're outnumbered by 1. He's like, would you like me to assist? They said, no, I think we got this under control.
Yeah,
really?
Respect.
This is right here in, it was either Brookfield or Lyons. I don't remember exactly which, but I think it was Lyons. But in any event, we complied, and I used to save a lot of stuff, different paperwork. My receipts and fucking shit were blown all over the place. They were outside of the car,
Sucks.
all sorts of shit I had. The car was just completely torn apart, and they're like, well, they're like, whose cigarettes are those? And Kyle, I didn't want to use the guy's name, but nobody knows who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Anyway, he goes, they're mine. He admits to it because he's just trying to be compliant. And he goes, wrong answer. You should have said they were your sisters or something like that. So like, all right, you guys are free to go, blah, blah, blah.
Shit.
And after that, they leave my car all torn the fuck up with shit everywhere that I had to fucking put away myself. Yeah, so, but anyway, my point was really just that there's been times where they probably could have brought us a canine around and never did. So in my experience, my personal experience is rare. I don't know if anybody would like to speak to somebody who's been through a search or a traffic stop where they've brought a canine.
Never have I.
I actually have not been part of a traffic stop, but I did have a canine unit called in on me. It just happened to be a canine because they called for backup, but
what?
I did nothing at all.
He
I was fucking innocent. Okay, so
he's so skinny. He's scrawny.
He's strong.
So
don't undersell him.
I was
I wouldn't want to fuck with him.
It was homeless awareness weekend at college up north where I was going to college in Wisconsin, and so for as part of homeless awareness event, like we were sleeping outside in cardboard boxes in the winter in December, right?
Oh my god!
And so I had my field jacket on, my camo field jacket from the ROTC, and then I was spending all day outside, so I had a ski mask on.
You're literally feeling what they're going through. Wow.
Yeah, and so I gone to the gas station for some cigars, and so I was behind the gas station, down the block from it, and I was just standing on the street corner, just killing time. So it's Ripon, Wisconsin, and it was like a Sunday or something. Like there's nothing to do. Like there's fucking nothing to do there. It's in the middle of nowhere. So I'm sitting there on the block, just smoking a Swisher Sweet or whatever. Cop pulls up to me and he's like, "What are you doing out here?" I'm like, just standing on the corner, smoking a cigar, man. And he's like, why the hell you got a ski mask on? I'm like, oh, I'm doing this homeless awareness week, like, or weekend or whatever the fuck it was, day, I don't know. It's years ago. And I'm like, I'm staying outside all day long. We're sleeping outside, so I'm fucking cold out. He's like, it's not that cold for a ski mask. I'm like,
Oh, fucking
fuck
asshole.
you. Go fuck
Like,
yourself.
I'm a bitch, sir. I need
Your fucking ass is in the squad car with
Right.
the heat on. Don't fucking tell me it's not fucking cold out. You sit in your squad car with the heat on all day, you fucking pussy. Like, you know. And so what does he do? He calls in fucking reinforcements, calls in backup. And I answered all his questions. He's like, let me see your ID. And I'm like, okay, here it is. You know, like, he's like, it's 369, back up, it's the corner block. Yeah. And so a car pulls up, but it's a K9 unit. So the K9 unit pulls up, and it's got the dog, the German Shepherd, losing his fucking mind in the backseat, ready to take a piece of my ass.
Oh,
He's
no.
like lunging at the fucking like window. It's got the cage, the cage behind the glass, sort of. He's like, you know, just going at him. Like,
Detail.
great. So I'm like, man, these guys are fucking assholes. Then 2 more cops show up, and like,
Now
I'm
you're
like, what are you guys
outnumbered.
doing? Like, and I'm asking, he's like, well, you're a little close to a gas station to be wearing a ski mask. I'm like, dude, I'm down. If I was robbing a gas station, would I just be standing here?
Right.
Standing here unarmed, smoking a cigarette? Like, this is, you know, fucking Pink Panther and detective over here. Anyways, so. And I never even took my ski mask off, like, except at the end. I'm like, do you need to see my face? Like, we had like 2-3 minutes of the conversation with me with my ski mask on, still smoking a cigar, giving no fucks about these guys. And I'm just like, I don't have to tell you, man, it's fucking cold out here. You fucking hang out here all day like I am, you'll get cold real quick, you know. He's like, well, I'm like, I mean, is this better? Like, are you afraid now? Like, all right, I'll go smoke my Swisher Sweet across the street from if it makes you guys
Your only
happy.
crime was staying warm.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was incredible. So then they fucked off because I wasn't doing anything
So much
wrong.
for
Nothing happened.
homeless
Yeah,
awareness.
but maybe that was real homeless awareness, getting
is.
harassed by the cops.
Yeah.
So I really
Because they-
experienced it. And
yeah,
I
you-
slept outside and I got harassed by the cops.
Right.
So it was great. I really got the full experience. I lived the dream, guys. The only thing I didn't get to experience was, like it just crippling depression and it's yeah. So.
I'm glad you didn't, brother.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're here with us right now, warm and inside. And
Or starvation.
I would even crank the heat in here because it's right here. It feels really good, but it would take too long to warm up. It takes a good 20, 30 minutes for it to go up a couple of degrees or maybe more.
But I digress. Back on track. Yeah.
Back on track. Asking for consent to search. It is permitted. And under a United States versus Turbin 517 F 3rd 1097 9th Circuit 2008. Because officers do not need reasonable suspicion to ask questions unrelated to the purpose of the actual stop, a request for consent to search that did not substantially prolong, like by 20, 30 minutes, a traffic stop was permissible.
So next time you get stopped, put your timer on.
Right.
Well, yeah. Look at what time it was, or maybe if you can record on your phone without like alarming the officer. Like what you're reaching for or whatever, then you can keep it, keep track. And police officers can ask you for consent to search, but,
You don't have to give it to
the
them.
question you got to ask yourself, because this is a time where you're nervous. I always try to remain as calm as possible. I got better at it as time went on because of my friends who I watched while they were getting pulled over, and they handled it really well, and I tried to do it, and it worked successfully for me a couple times. But people are nervous, and you want to ask without being rude because you're dealing with a person in position of authority. Well, why do you want to search my car? If they don't have a good reason, then you just tell them, well, I politely decline that. But that's best case scenario. I mean, I don't know that I could have even done that, in my younger years to be that assertive. But my example that I just gave was I knew I had nothing to hide, so I let them search it. But as a matter of principle, you could politely decline and say, well, sir, I really don't have time for this. So, it would be really nice if you gave me a warning, but if you feel that you must give me a ticket, go ahead and do so. But other than that, I got to be on my way. I got to get home, or I got to do whatever I can do as a free person in a fucking free country. I got to get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So you can't decline that too. But again, and then if you do end up dealing with an asshole cop who does something illegal, your place to dispute that is after in the court of law and not in the street. Sometimes it hurts to get fucked because it's a feeling of injustice, but there's a lot of lawyers out there who would be glad to help, especially in this day and age. Talk to the ACLU like we just talked about right here. We're about to segue into ACLU of Illinois, what to do if you're stopped by police. Yeah. And there's other, Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. There's probably a lot of other attorneys out there who would love to take a good case for inappropriate police behavior when it certainly is inappropriate.
And it never improves your situation to fight with the cops or run from the cops or resist arrest. It's never going to help you out. Like, I mean, how many times do we have to watch these police videos where people are resisting and it only inflames the situation, even though you might be in the right, you might be completely in the right, but it doesn't matter in that situation because you're only putting yourself at jeopardy. You're putting your well-being at jeopardy, your life in jeopardy, your freedom further in jeopardy, increased additional charges on top of that. You trying to work this out in the street and assert your sense of justice or rightness or whatever the fuck have you is never the fucking answer.
Wait till court and let somebody who's much better at you, like a trained attorney, do it for you.
You're just digging the hole. Just
cash in on the big bucks.
Yeah, you're just burying yourself. What you really want to do is let your lawyer sort that out. And it's like, hey, do you want to be alive for that settlement money, even if you are getting your ass beat? Like, you want to be alive for that settlement money, baby.
True. And enjoy it.
you know? There's a light at this tunnel. It's called a fat settlement. Like when the city tries to just get rid of it. Oh God, pay this guy out. Like, let it be done.
Body cams help with
I
that.
was recently stopped. Traffic. It went really smooth. I didn't know that my brake lights were out. They're like, "Do you know why we stopped you?" I'm like, "No." I almost started crying.
Oh my God.
What did I do?
And the award goes to Tilsa for Best Actress.
I'm like, I don't know. What did I do?
Just your taillights. It's that's all. Like,
okay. So it turned out I had a fuse that went out.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, how am I supposed to repair this? I don't know how to do it. They're like, no, it's okay. Just get
those repairs are unfortunately expensive nowadays. Like if you go into let's say even
just a fuse,
you want to get a light bulb replaced, like the little taillight thing. That's like $50.
Because it's a fucking cluster. Like I learned this with the wagon. So when the lights go out, it's like, oh, we'll just replace the the one light or whatever, the reverse light or whatever. No, you have to replace the whole cluster, brake lights, reverse light, blinker,
Yeah, you do.
But if it's just a fuse, that's cheap. You just go down to AutoZone and you get a little box of fuse for like $10.
I'm glad I have a friend that's a mechanic. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, you blew out both? He's like, there's something wrong with that.
It's a fuse, yeah.
Yeah, so he's like, no, it's definitely the fuse. You just
a few
got
bucks.
these. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was like, problem
you
solved.
just open your fuse box in the engine. You'll have with your owner's manual, there'll be it'll map out which fuse controls what. I did that with my Lexus when I took out the fuse for the radio, and you just take it out. You just pluck it out yourself, put a new one in.
Yep.
It's super easy. Yeah, that's totally normal.
Should have asked the officer for help. Like, listen, since
Yeah.
you stopped me.
Yeah,
I don't want to get clipped in the street while they're working on a car or whatever. But yeah. I thought of a point that Tilsa made earlier about the difference in treatment of mass shooters or people like that with people that resist, right? Like Matt was just talking about right now, resisting is in any form, passively not following the commands of police officers or actively in a physical way or whatever have you. Usually it doesn't. It just escalates the situation and makes it worse. I believe, and maybe you could check me on this, the South Carolina shooter who went into the church and killed 9 people,
That's fucked up.
which was that fucking piece of shit. Apparently, when he was apprehended,
Dylan Roof, that little twink bitch.
that piece of shit.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Now he should have gotten a beat down, but he wasn't resisting.
He didn't resist at all. I think he went completely silently.
Yep.
But that's where you could have just like kicked his ass. You could have punched him a few times.
I think he definitely deserved it.
It would have been appropriate.
That's the because we have that desire for justice, where like you see somebody who did something so terrible, it's like this is what kind of force you're going to be met with. You're going to get your fucking ass kicked for fucking killing innocent civilians when they're in church. It's fucking disgusting.
I certainly would have turned off my body cam. This is why I can't be a police officer. I would have been beating the shit out of him.
I don't have the right temperament for it. Like I would fuck these people up. Like,
I would fuck them up.
We were working 16 hours a day, and the batteries weren't recharged. So when we got to lockup, I don't know. They weren't filming anymore. And
I told our tech guys. I fucking told our IT guys they needed to fix this problem.
Shame.
They let us down again.
Well, I guess we'll never know what really happened because it was just allegations. But he's no longer with us now.
Yeah.
So.
Oops.
I mean, this guy gave us the business. Like I feared for my life, and he's a dangerous man. So he did what had to be done.
He
up the stairs, down the stairs, all of those.
He's really clumsy, as it turns out. I don't know. Yeah.
I really would not. Fucking asshole. Like, how do you go? I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole.
Let's not. Let's keep it positive. Let's talk about when we know when a traffic stop is over. Termination of the stop. Mm-hmm. As the Fourth Circuit of the United States Court appellate court explains, when an officer returns a driver's documents, license and insurance, it indicates that all business with the driver is completed and that he is free to leave. United States versus Lattimore, 87 F 3rd 647 4th Circuit 1996. So a smart officer would tell you it's over, but apparently if they just give you your documents back and then get in their car and begin to drive away, then you know it's over as well. So if they want to be very curt with you and not engage in pleasantries, well, everything checks out here. Here's your license and your registration back. You can be on your merry fucking way now. It's still over once their body language and actions speak for themselves, I guess.
It's a bit of a gray area, but more or less, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just a quick note as we transition into the last part of the podcast here, what to do if you're stopped by a police officer. If you're a dirty boy riding dirty, you got something to worry about. If you're a clean boy riding clean, then you don't have anything to worry about. I was coming back with a friend of mine from a night out, and we went to grab some food. We were hitting the taco spot late at night. It's hard to see what streets, were one ways or whatnot when you're driving. And my friend went down a one-way street and then turned down the alley to get back to going into the right direction. Nobody was around. It was late. Most people were probably asleep, and we're probably talking between 12 and maybe 2 in the morning or something like that. And so there was no problems with us. Physically, there was two officers in a squad car, and they saw us. And they followed us, and they stopped us in the alley. So we're now have officers approaching on each side of the vehicle. I'm on the passenger side, my friend's on the driver's side, and we're in an alley where nobody can see us. And
that gives me anxiety when they all the second one.
My
I've been there. Yeah, I've been stopped in the alley by the cops.
My friend handled it like a pro, but I mean, it's the perfect maneuver. They stay slightly behind you so that if, in order to attack them, you'd have to turn backward and you're at a disadvantaged position. They are in an advantaged position if they have to pull their gun and fire on you because I go into the glove box or my waistband or the side of the car, wherever the fuck I have a gun hidden. So you got a guy there and one on the other side. My buddy rolls down the window. He says, "Do you know why I stopped you?" He says, "Yeah, it was a yes, sir, no, sir type of thing." He was very respectful. He said, I think I went down a one-way street back there. And he said, "Yeah, that's exactly what it was." And he says, "Well, what were you doing driving over here?" And he says, "Well, we were just coming to get a bite to eat, and I don't really know the area too well. And I thought it looked like I was able to go down there. And as soon as I got past it, I realized it was a one-way street." He says, "Yeah, that's correct." He says, "Let me go review your information." My guy was polite the whole time. "Yes, sir, no, sir." The other officer, I think, might have stayed on my side just to kind of keep an eye on us while the other officer was reviewing the information. And he just says, "Look, if you're going to get your food, go get it, go home, be safe, whatever," and they let us go.
Nice.
From that day forward, I internalized and learned, to manage my own nervous energy, and I had been pulled over several times after that. One time I was working at Office Depot prior to law school, and I was going, 5 to 10 over the limit, in the same neighborhood. I was in Summit, so we were in Summit. We were going to get a bite to eat over there that night, and then I was on my way to work. I had to pass through Summit. and I was going faster. I should have been. This guy, officer, pulls me over. Says, "You know, I pulled you over." I said, "You know, not really, sir." He says, "You're going a little bit too fast back there." You know, and he didn't give me an exact, miles per hour. He says, "You in some kind of hurry?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I'm on my way to work right now, and I'm running a little late already. So, I think my anxiety kind of took over there, and I was just driving faster than I should have been, I guess." And I didn't argue about it. Because like when somebody sees something, like, your eyes don't lie. Like, seeing is believing. You see what you see. What are you trying to argue? No, I wasn't speeding. Like, dude, they're gonna win every fucking time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I went along with it, and the guy was like, let me off, and he says, just be careful getting to work and don't be speeding. I said, all right, no problem, sir. Thanks for letting me off. With a warning. Turns out my friend at the time was working in the convenience store over there, and he knew who the officer was because I told him I got pulled over the other day, and because I could see the guy's name, and I told him, he says, "Do you know which one it was?" He says, "I know them all. They all come in here for coffee." and I told him who it was, and he says, "Oh yeah, I mentioned you to that police officer last time he was in," and he goes, "Yeah, I heard you pulled over my friend, but you didn't give him a ticket." And he goes, "Oh yeah, your buddy's like." He was a nice guy. I couldn't give him a ticket or something. And that's what happened for me being respectful. And I know that doesn't always happen, especially if you're dealing with a racist officer, but I was fortunate, and every time since then I've been very fortunate too. So do your best to be careful out on the road. But what
I have not been so fortunate.
You will never win a battle at a traffic stop. Just let it go.
No, and I don't even.
That's not a place to.
I don't even try. Like I have not been fortunate. I dealt with unfortunately a good number of asshole cops that come 100%, like 100 miles an hour real quick. So, and me being respectful to them did not matter. But I'll tell you what, it didn't hurt my situation. It didn't damage the situation. I didn't give them any more ammo. So it's always important to be respectful to a police officer, even if they're a disrespectful cunt to you, pardon my French, which several of them have been to me. But even still, I managed my emotions, still was respectful, and I think a lot of times they are trying to build you up so that you do something stupid.
Yes.
Take some misstep, act criminal activity.
Yeah, like see what's.
Oh,
see
you
what's
do have a
up,
gun on you.
Get shit started with you. They're trying to like put you on edge so that you're kind of off your game. So they're almost, they can find a reason to spite you with something else or arrest you. I really think that's what it is, and we don't have to go into specifics of those encounters. But I came out of it with just not arrested and not beat down. So I think of those as a win still.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though I still got tickets, whatever. But
with body cams now, like if you were like what you were saying, yes sir, no sir, like even though they're trying to escalate things and you're being the bigger person and treating them with respect, if they did end up kicking your ass or wrongfully arresting you and you sued them later, look how great that would look.
Right.
Like you're like a model fucking citizen, and this person clearly doesn't belong in the force, or they're clearly a fucking asshole, or both. Switching over to the end here, ACLU of Illinois. What to do if you're stopped by police. First, think carefully. I love how they said to think first. Think.
Very important.
Judge Dara, rest in peace, who I worked extern for during law school, would always say, think, always be thinking, think about things, make sense of them. Think carefully about your words, your movement, your body language, and emotions.
I'm done with my emotions. Like,
you kind of need to stay still.
Stay robotic.
Keep your hands at 10 and 2, or keep them in a place where they're clearly visible.
Yes, on the steering wheel, baby.
Do not move quickly. Do not dart for things.
It's deliberate movements. And tell the cops, preempt cops with what you're doing.
Tell them what you're about to do.
I think
my license is there. Would you like to retrieve it, or would you mind if I do it?
I think my insurance is in my glove box. I'm just going to open my glove box. My insurance is in there. My registration is there. I'm just going to pop my glove box open. I might have to fish through it. I might have to fish through it.
If you'd like to do that, I'll go very slowly forward. Or if you'd like to get it, it's in there.
Yeah.
And then it's a question of officer's judgment whether they trust you enough.
And pro tip, when I get pulled over by cops, I'll tell you what I do. First fucking thing, I know they're going to ask for my fucking license. First thing I do, I have that fucking bitch ready in the center console, little cup holder, put my fucking wallet in the cup holder, right? So he asks for my license. I'm not doing this, right? What's that? Is your gun back there? Is a knife back there? Yeah, so as soon as I know I'm getting pulled over, fuck, here I go.
He's been pulled
Fucking
over
pulled.
one too many times.
I try to do that too, but I think I start to wonder whether I'm
About
already
3
alerting their
times.
suspicion if they can
3
see
or
my
4.
movements. But I try to do the same thing, have
Yeah.
it ready.
Yeah, so that and that way when they're coming up on you and they're standing right there, they're not like you're not reaching right there with them right there because that if you get a trigger happy cop,
You're done.
You're deep shit. So
Facts.
yeah, and never too fast with your movements because I've seen some videos of police interactions where a guy was just reaching for his wallet, like license and registration.
He did it really quickly.
And did it really quick. He went like that. Cop lit him up. Yeah, right in the
Is that the
driver's
one
seat.
where the guy got shot in the ass in like South Carolina, or is that a different one?
I don't know.
We had one in law school we mentioned
Yeah.
on the podcast before where guys like get your driver's license registration. The guy just kind of like he was nervous and he was trying to comply quickly and he kind of like
Too quickly.
kind of darted
was too
into
trigger
where
happy.
the center console was and he got shot in the ass and turns out the guy had no weapons, nothing.
Yep.
Just
That's
trying to get his
fucking
license.
sad.
And yeah, poor guy. He was all right. Took a shot to the ass. Poor bastard.
Yeah, I don't think he was
probably
permanently hurt
the
from
most valuable shot in the ass that you ever got. Like if I could get a fat settlement, well, I guess maybe that fleshy, lumpy area back there. I mean, I don't want to
It'll
ruin my
heal
booty
just
or
fine.
nothing like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Because whatever. But the last one segues into the last part of thinking carefully is controlling your emotions, and it says don't get into an argument with a police officer.
Yes, you're never gonna win, even if you're right.
Yeah.
Even if you're right, you will never win. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, and the best you can do is just be respectful and be like, because I almost got into an argument with a police officer. I'm gonna stop. It was one of those 100-mile-an-hour situations. Came in with very aggressive attitude, yelling at me, and she started getting into it about how it was the whole thing was about accelerating to pass on just a 2-lane country road, right? And it's just like she's like, you can't exceed the speed limit to pass. I saw you went over the speed limit when you were passing that car back there. I'm like, yeah, literally everyone does. I exceeded the speed limit for about 2 to 3 seconds to get around the car. And she's like, you can't exceed the speed limit to pass. I'm like, I understand that, but as a pragmatic matter of surviving and not dying in a head-on collision, everyone exceeds the speed limits for about 3 seconds when they're passing. In order to do it safe, you have to. The reason I was like, yeah, I just do that because so I don't get a head-on or something, take 5 minutes to pass the car and die in a head-on collision, And she's like, well, you can't do that in the future. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie. I probably will continue to do it, but I understand your position, and I just told her I understand your position, and
absolutely, ma'am.
Yeah,
especially because you said so, and my lesson learned. Yeah. And then when you're nowhere no longer in sight, and I need to do it, I'll take it.
And so I tried. I've learned my lesson because I tried logically, rationally, engaging, and I wasn't emotional. She was very emotional and fucking yelling at my face. I was like, but if I was very methodical, like I'm talking to you now, and I was like, well, I exceeded the speed limit so that it would not take too long to pass the vehicle, whereas I would be in danger of a head-on collision if I dawdled in the left lane.
Say, you smart ass.
So that's why I did. I understand your position, and if you feel you have to give me a ticket, do what you got to do. I understand where you're coming from. You got me on the red letter law and the black letter law, and so I understand. It is what it is, and do what you got to do. But I attempted to logically reason with this officer that it's not good to dawdle in the left lane. And she was like, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. You can't exceed the speed limit to pass, period. I'm like, and I was like, everyone who's still alive today that lives, in Wisconsin or whatever, has exceeded the speed limit to pass briefly. Otherwise, if it's because you have a guy that say you're in a country road 55 miles an hour, right? The guy's doing like 52 or whatever, 53.
Or lower, 40 or 45.
Yeah. If you didn't exceed the speed limit pass, you go 55. It's going to take you a while to go around that guy. And meanwhile, tractor trailer truck or a big fucking Ford Super Duty, it's going to head-on collision you and die. I had a buddy of mine who fucking died in a head-on collision back in, it was a grade school buddy of mine, died in a head-on collision doing that shit. Took too fucking long to pass. Dead, 16 years old. Smack. So it's something you don't dawdle in. You don't go crazy. I'm not saying you fucking do 90 to pass. No. So I was doing like 65 or whatever when I was going around this cat, and it's like, hey, but it's like And I knew this chick was blowing smoke up my ass. She was just being a dick to be a dick. And, you know, it's like, I'm sure she does that too. You know, she's a fucking cop. Of course she fucking exceeds the speed limit to pass a fucking vehicle. Like, everyone fucking does it. Like, it's just a matter of pragmatic survival. So, yeah. So, like, but she wasn't hearing it, right? And so all that was a fucking waste of breath, basically. So you should.
Sometimes you get screwed and you have to pay a ticket.
But, like, what you said is totally correct. You just be like, Roger, tracking, understood. And
I was always more concerned about getting tickets when I was younger because I didn't have the money to pay them. Like $100 or $200 was like a lot of money. It was like you were scared, you got a ticket. You're like, fuck, man, that's like, it's almost like, you know, back in the day that'd have been like half your week's pay or something like that, or maybe more. Yeah. But in any event, after the podcast is over, ask him what he wrote on the memo line to the check or whatever before he sent it in. We're not going to say that on here. No need to. But in any event. So, all right. Well, so we had don't argue with the police. Anything you can say can. Anything you say or do can be used against you. Keep your hands where the police can see them. We already mentioned that. That's just keep them where you can see them and don't move quickly. Don't run. Don't run from the police, okay? Do we see how many incidences escalate big time when we run, or we see people running during.
If you run, keep running. Don't stop.
Yeah.
This is just advice from Tilsa.
Based on what we're seeing, you might outrun the cops.
Run
and they never catch you
faster.
anyway.
Get your cardio up, people.
Don't touch any police officer. So resisting, even if you barely put your hand on them, obviously it just seems to
Just
lead
go
to bad
limp.
results. Don't resist, even if you believe you are innocent. Don't complain on the scene or tell the police they're wrong or that you're going to file a complaint. You don't threaten that you're going to file a complaint. You just do it after it's over. Don't make any statements regarding the incident. Well, sir, or he says, you know, what did you do to the other guy? Well, the other guy was punching me. I can't say what I did to him.
Right.
But at the time that this incident occurred, this individual was assaulting me, blah, 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 blah. Focus on what the other person's doing. Don't incriminate yourself.
Not what you did.
Anything you can say can and will be used against you in the court of law.
For sure.
Don't make any statements. Don't make any statements regarding the incident. Ask for a
Lawyer
lawyer immediately upon your arrest. After you've been, you know, if you find out, you know, if you ask them to say, "Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest, or am I free to go?"
Yep.
If you're under arrest, they need to read your rights at that time. From the Miranda case, the United States Supreme Court case, and at that time you can say, well, I can't speak with you any further until I get an attorney. Remember officers' badge and patrol car numbers. I mean, I think it's really fucking tough to do. Yeah. Like, I think now in this day and age, citizens are much more open with the confrontation with the police, where they're willing to ask, what's your badge number, what's your name, you know, or what's your patrol car numbers.
They have business cards too that you can ask for. With
I think
badge.
so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you said you have a business card on you. You can give it to them. They can give it to you. So try to remember that information. I mean, honestly, I think if there's an incident with the police that results in some kind of trouble for you, there's going to be record of it anyway. Like, they say remember this shit. Like, aren't they going to write up a report? Yeah. And then there's an arrest record when you get in there. Like, they're going to, I think they would know who the officers are that were involved. Write down everything you remember ASAP. A fresh memory is the best memory, and the faintest of ink is stronger than the strongest of minds, right? Try to find witnesses and their names and phone numbers. It would be hard to imagine there wasn't witnesses to the Tyre Nichols incident, because it was right in a residential neighborhood. People had to be looking out their window with those lights and the yelling and all the noise that was going on.
Yeah.
If you are injured, take photographs of the injury as soon as possible. Preserve evidence. Make sure you seek medical attention first. That's the most important priority. If you feel your rights have been violated, file a written complaint with the police department's internal affairs division or civilian complaint board, or call the ACLU hotline 18776 profile.
I just want to say, filing a written complaint within the police's internal affairs department. I mean, I think it should be pretty apparent by now that pretty much, aside from these very egregious, like, recorded, documented, in plain sight incidents, when police departments investigate themselves, they rather more frequently than not, almost always, find that they did nothing wrong. Oddly enough.
I would say
So-
recently I had to do a complaint towards a police officer, and the questioning when I was brought into the headquarters was just very odd. Couldn't really give a full-on statement, and they were the questions that they were asking were just very like in a way that I felt is not giving you the full story. Like,
Oh, of course not. They're
You
gonna
know,
protect their own. I mean, that's what it is. Like, we investigated ourselves and we found nothing wrong. Okay, in case closed.
Yeah.
That's basically how it goes. So internal affairs is probably a waste of time. I won't say certainly, but probably a waste of your time. Yeah. So at least from what I've seen with these, I mean, it's like, I get that they have it, like, and for the egregious stuff that they can't keep under wraps, it's they're gonna have to blow the whistle on that. But for abuse of power stuff like that, that's not really up in plain sight or like in the public's mind or in the news, they're gonna sweep that on the rug. They really, that's what I believe. So
Yeah, I don't want to. I see what you're saying. Obviously, it could be biased if you're dealing with internal affairs.
oh yeah, big time.
Or if these officers, a lot of priors, maybe internal affairs really comes down on them, refers them for further, action. A lawsuit's always a good one as well. So
Yeah, more effective.
very, very good information there. There's a few last points I'll read, and then I'll tell you about some of the other things it says based on the various places that you're dealing with police. Let's see what we have here. There's a second one. You must show your driver's license and registration when stopped in a car. They don't cite to any authority here, but I presume that the American Civil Liberties Union knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So they say you must show your driver's license and registration when stopped in a car.
Looking at you, sovereign citizens.
Otherwise, you don't. Otherwise, other than showing your driver's license and registration, you don't have to answer any questions if you are detained or arrested. And I know that's tough because it feels like you're being combative or resisting in some way. Honestly, I mean, if it's minor offense, whatever. It is what it is. Do whatever you have to. It says here that you don't have to answer questions. The police may ask you for your name if you have been properly detained, and you can be arrested in some states for refusing to give it. You'll have to do some more research on that on your own for whatever state that you're
Depending
in.
on your state. Yeah.
If you have reasonable fear that your name is incriminating, you can claim the right to remain silent, which may be a defense in your case if you're arrested anyway. So saying your name if you have warrants, that could be a problem for you, right? I can't say my name's on grounds and it might incriminate me. And then maybe you're using a stolen ID or a fake one. Now you got a fucking another offense there. Next one, you don't have to consent to any search of yourself, your car, or your house. If you do consent to a search, it can affect your rights later in court. What does that mean? Well, if you gave them permission, then they can use any of that shit that they find.
It's admissible.
So the whole why can you refuse? It's protecting your right to privacy, and that's what the founding fathers wanted to do by adding the Bill of Rights to the Constitution. At first, there was a lot of people who just said, no, leave just the powers of government there, and we don't need necessarily to list out rights of the people. I'm glad they won the fucking day because we deserve it. Like, what isn't it? That's the main protections that we have in the Constitution is the Bill of Rights. Like, the powers of government. If that's all there was, and they have the power to do whatever the fuck they want. So Fourth Amendment right against unwarranted and unreasonable searches and seizures. If the police say they have a search warrant, ask to see it. But you don't have to consent to a search. But this is, well, I don't, sir, ma'am, I respectfully decline to give you consent to search my person or my vehicle or whatever the case may be, or rather probably the vehicle or your home. If you have a warrant, then I'd like to see it. If not, then, I have a great day and, I got to go. Bye.
Yeah.
So then this article, which it goes on to say if you're stopped in public for questioning, we already talked about if you're stopped in a car, if you're arrested or taken to a police station, if you're in your home, what to say, do, and expect.
Bam. Drop the mic.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
pretty holistic.
great information. Yeah, it covers a lot of bases there. So this is very great information. We will post the links to the articles here from the ACLU and the link to that PDF where it lays out traffic stops by Jeff Welty. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? That was a good one. It seems like
No, it was
everybody's
really good.
drained here. Tilsa had a birthday celebration today. She's probably tired. Get your exercise, light exercise today, Tilsa. Get some rest. Happy
lots of
birthday to
water.
you.
Yes. Feliz cumpleaños.
And you, Matt, you did you get a good night's sleep last night?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Safe drive back to Chicago. Glad to have you back with us, brother.
Good.
Anybody else want to add anything before we go?
I think we covered it pretty well. Yeah.
Kindness is the world's most powerful resource, and we control it. We as a people control it. Kindness is contagious, so spread it all over and make the world a better place. Stay blessed and tune in to the next episode of the Blessed Life University podcast. We love you, man. Peace out.